I think we are. We're joined by various people from various places. Apologies, short stream. Took a little while. You can see a few people in the short stream already as well. If you're wondering why I'm called that, I'm German. It's a perfectly reasonable name. It just caught me out because it's like four, like you put your full name in. You know what I mean? Like most people, I think when you sign up for an account, you maybe put your first and second name in. I wasn't expecting 4 names. It just caught me off guard. But it's allowed, of course. Ferrari 1-2. I'm not sure. I'm sure that you want a Ferrari 1-2. I'm not sure I can deliver that for you. I'm not sure that we're watching the right race together. Maybe. Can I interest you in 2005, 2004? Can I interest you in a race from then? I think I could show you quite a few Ferrari 1-2s. But yeah, we can let you dream. Don't you worry. Well, I mean, to be fair, going into turn 1, we've seen chaos in Singapore turn 1 before. It's not like it is absolutely guaranteed that everyone is going to get smoothly through those first couple of corners. Because, who was it? Vettel, Raikkonen, and a Red Bull. Was it Ricciardo? Verstappen? I can't remember which Red Bull it was now. Between the 2 Ferraris that just sort of got sandwiched. Between those 3 sending themselves out. We know that it can get a little bit messy at the start. Justin says Max winning. Not applicable. How do you think about the new shirts? The Adidas Mercedes ones. I would love an Adidas Mercedes shirt. I am very Adidas build. All of the sports stuff that I have pretty much is Adidas. I just think the 3 stripes looks exquisite. Like the new Liverpool kit as well. I really want to get one of those. Basically, I just haven't got enough money to buy all of the Adidas clothing that I would like. This is my life that I live. How many yellow/red flags do you think will happen? I don't know, though, because we were expecting that in Azerbaijan, weren't we? After qualifying, we were expecting quite a lot of yellow and red flags, considering there were 6 in qualifying in Azerbaijan. And then it just didn't really go anywhere. So it's not necessarily going to be scattered with red flags and safety cars just because it's a street circuit. As I say, though, going down towards turn 1, I think I just got a feeling... We usually get, 1 or 2 a season going down to turn 1 where there's a little bit of chaos, some back and forth, some bouncing of wheels and possibly even some removing of carbon fiber from various cars. And we haven't quite got that this season yet. I was expecting it to come between the 2 McLarens at some point. They're just throwing away any kind of entertainment that we're going to have for this championship battle. Max Verstappen has decided to be the most entertaining driver on the grid as ever. Like, he always turns up, always does something that we can talk about. Does Max, doesn't he? So, I don't know. It just feels very Max Verstappen to be starting second place, to be alongside George Russell of all people, and to go down towards turn 1 and just be a little bit aggressive, put those elbows out a touch, maybe, and see if he can bully George Russell into giving him some space. At the grandstand that you currently mentioned is currently build of the NS Square. Grandstand you mentioned is currently built with... Oh, this one, yeah. I was like, which grandstand? But I was like, this grandstand. The grandstand that is plaguing my wall. I can't point at the right bit. There you go. The grandstand that is plaguing my wall. This bump that no longer exists on the Singapore circuit that they said would be back. So I was like, well, I won't update the track map. They said it would be back. Hasn't been back. Might be back in the future. Never know. Oh, the new shirt system. I just thought you meant the shirt I was wearing, which is not a new shirt. It's a Mercedes shirt from like 2 seasons ago, maybe it's last season, the new shirt system. I mean, I can understand why Formula One have done it. For people that don't know what I'm maybe referring to, all of the drivers this week have to wear a cooling system, a cooling vest. Well, they don't have to. They've been advised to wear a cooling vest, and the new cooling systems have been added to every single car on the grid. So I think it's one of those things where Formula One and the FIA justified it by saying, you know, they don't want to have another Qatar incident where drivers are literally falling out of the car once they finish the Grand Prix. And they want to be in a position where they can keep the races going. It's a little bit like the debate around wet races, isn't it? You know, if we do have to cancel a race because it is too hot for the drivers to drive, then Formula One loses out on quite a lot, right? So they want to be in a position where they can put on a race in any conditions just in case. And that's why they've put these added cooling systems in place for the drivers. They want to be able to justify still putting on a Grand Prix even when the weather is ridiculous. I mean, it's not looking like... The problem that you've got in Singapore is the humidity more than anything else, particularly because it's been raining. There's been thunderstorms to talk about. Has stopped raining in Singapore now. So we are kind of looking at probably a green track that is dry-ish. I think it's difficult to judge in it because it's already dark in Singapore. So it's not like they've got the sun to... I was going to say soak up all of the water. Not how it works. Evaporate all of the water that is on the track. There are squeegees out, and you can see the teams sort of shuffling the water away from their pit boxes. But I think it's going to be warm enough in Singapore still that even though it's nighttime, the track will be pretty much dry by the time the race starts, as long as there's no rain between now and then, obviously. But yeah, at the moment, it has stopped raining, and it is drying as we speak. Random question, am I sitting or standing? I am standing. I do like to stand. I don't know why. I think it's because I got this new desk, started to stand. Gives me energy. And I've just enjoyed it, so I've just kind of lent into it. I could sit. I could sit if I wanted to. I think I sat when there was a red flag at some point in the season. If it rains, we might as well expect a stroll podium. I don't think it's going to rain again, though, is the thing. I think it's kind of past. It's a damp track. But I don't think it will be damp. It's damp at the moment, but we still got 45 minutes where the track is going to be just sort of, and everyone is out there kind of moving water off of the track and off of various places. So I think by the time we actually get around to racing, it will be pretty dry. Sauber podium possible? I don't know. We've seen a lot of midfield driver podiums this year, though. We've had a Williams on the podium, we've had an RB on the podium, we have had a Sauber on the podium. Surely somebody else is, like a Haas maybe? Feel like Ollie Behrman picking up a podium would be pretty magical. I wouldn't say no to an Ollie Behrman podium if you're offering one. Who else could nab one? Fernando Alonso, I guess, an Aston Martin podium. But we've seen Fernando on podiums before. I'm not that concerned if Fernando Alonso gets another podium. Don't tell Dan I've said that, but I think if Fernando Alonso won the race, that would be good. That would be something spectacular. But Fernando Alonso on the podium probably wouldn't excite me as much as a Behrman podium or even the Hadjar podium that we had or Hulkenberg podium that we had earlier on in the year. The last time it rained in Singapore in 2017, a P5 Britisher won. Britisher, good. Hopefully nothing like that this time. I mean, if you're a Lando Norris fan, he would most certainly be pretty happy if he can come from 5th place to take the victory. We'll have a little look at the starting grid momentarily because, yeah, it has changed a little bit. Not inside of the top 10, but a couple of Williams disqualifications have made it look slightly different to what it looked like at the end of qualifying yesterday. And we'll delve into that in a bit more detail in a moment. First and foremost, though, before we get underway, we've got to talk about the predictions. Predictions every single time we come into a Grand Prix weekend. You can get involved in the predictions as well, of course. I mean, you can get involved in the predictions right now by just putting them in the live chat, and I'll be looking at some in a second. But we do have the general predictions from the community. I think we had just over 400 people vote on the predictions for this week. So this is the conglomeration of 400 people's Formula One opinions. So it should be pretty spot on, right? Well, well, I think we were all predicting a little bit more from Lando Norris. Like, it's still not over yet, don't get me wrong, but a 5th place yesterday, and McLaren also looking like the best team might even be under threat, as the 2 Mercedes cars are ahead of the 2 McLaren cars, so they could outscore the McLaren team this weekend if, of course, it finishes as it is right now. You did have Max Verstappen on the podium. I think that's pretty much guaranteed. Max Verstappen has turned on the heat most recently, hasn't he? Very much looking to just put himself in and amongst the championship battle. I think that's the thing with Max. We kind of slept on him maybe a touch as we came into the summer break. A lot of the talk was Lando versus Oscar, how many wins it's going to be for the McLaren team in the second half of the season. We had 10 races to go at that point, and it was very much a, well, there was only a 9-point gap between Lando and Oscar. It was looking to be a real battle between the two. And just a couple of races later, you know, Max Verstappen, back-to-back victories in September. Just, you know, making sure that we remember he is still a 4-time world champion. He is still the current world champion. And it's never say never when it comes to Max Verstappen, isn't it? It's just one of those drivers where every single time you go, well, maybe this weekend won't be his weekend, still delivers, still has the ability to do it. But Max Verstappen on the podium. Also, Oscar Piastri, 3rd place. He is starting in 3rd place. So actually, 2 of your top 3 in terms of the predictions, you're spot on with at the moment. Still the race to go. Just Lando disappointing there. Surprise also, we were hoping for a positive weekend from Yuki Tsunoda. He went out in Q2 yesterday, so not looking like the most positive of weekends for Yuki Tsunoda. I think there was a bit of hype, wasn't there? Azerbaijan, best performance in a Red Bull so far. P6 for him in Azerbaijan as well, picking up a good haul of points. We're like, yes, this might just be it, but maybe it's just Azerbaijan. I think I said it yesterday. Like, I know Sergio Perez was very good in Azerbaijan as well, but I think it's just that second Red Bull seat. You're only ever quick in Azerbaijan. Wait, how will Ferrari outscore McLaren? I mean, they can, if they both finish ahead of them. At the moment, the highest scoring team would be Mercedes. Mercedes would be the highest scoring team if it finishes as it is right now, because obviously George Russell winning the race, Antonelli in 4th. That is ahead of Piastri is the closest McLaren in 3rd, and Lando Norris is 5th. So would be a good solid chunk of points for Mercedes. I still think the championship would be won. I need to do the maths on that, because McLaren need to be leaving this weekend with over, it's a 303-point lead that they need coming out of this weekend. They already have more than that. It's just, but because technically, you know, Mercedes could get a 1-2 here and McLaren could DNF both cars. Technically, Mercedes and Ferrari and even Red Bull, I think, are still in championship contention for the constructors. But yeah, McLaren will win the constructors championship if they leave here with a 303-point margin to whoever it may be in second place. Because actually, when it comes to the constructor standings, it could be Mercedes, Ferrari, or Red Bull. I think Max Verstappen single-handedly keeping Red Bull in contention for second place in the constructors. Am I saying that McLaren are going to lose the Constructors' Championship? Absolutely not. You know, we were talking about the possibility of McLaren picking up 1,000 points just a few races ago. I don't think they can do that anymore. No, they can't do that anymore. But we were talking about the possibility of McLaren picking up 1,000 points coming out of the summer break as well. They can't do that anymore after the 3 races we've had since then. But I think McLaren is still going to win the Constructors' Championship. It's kind of when they win it. As I say, they can win it this weekend, but they need to be at least 303 points ahead of, well, Mercedes, most likely to be in second place at the moment because they're in second place right now and they're ahead of their rivals in terms of points scored if the race finishes as it is after qualifying. Then going down the board a little bit, yeah, Williams, absolute clanger for them this weekend, isn't it? 101 points now on the board. First time they've reached 100 since 2016. So it's an insanely good season for Williams. And I think they are guaranteed to finish in 5th place. But again, they'll just have one eye on the racing bulls. Isaac Hadjar, best of the rest yesterday in qualifying. Lawson gaining a couple of positions because of the Williams DNFs. You know, they'll have half an eye open on that Racing Bulls team. I think Racing Bulls more looking just to consolidate 6th place from Aston Martin. They've taken back 6th place from them once again. Stake Sauber have kind of fallen off a little bit from that place where they were looking like they might be in contention for sort of, again, 6th place at best probably, but they've dropped off a touch. Hulkenberg and Bortoletto not scoring the points that they were just before the summer break. And I don't know, it's still an interesting battle there, but I think the Racing Bulls car has been the better of those midfield cars for the majority of the season. I can understand, and I think the championship kind of doesn't lie in that sense. You know, sometimes we get the championship, especially with those midfield cars, like last year when Alpine scored that double podium in Brazil. Because of that, the championship standings didn't really represent the whole season in that sense, because they had a one-off, absolutely incredible result, which sort of padded the stats a touch for Alpine last year. I think at the moment, the championship standings still reflect where I would have positioned the cars in terms of pace over the course of the season so far. But I think that's kind of where we are in terms of the Constructors' Championship. Maybe another Hulk masterclass today. I mean, that would certainly help Stake Sauber because they've dropped, 7 points behind Aston Martin and 17 points behind Racing Bull. So, I mean, if Hulkenberg can pick up like a 15 points, get another podium in the bag, suddenly it's they're back in that championship fight once again. But at the moment, not looking so. Oh, wrong one. You had the struggle. Franco Colapinto, it's looking like the Alpine might actually be the major struggle. An issue for Pierre Gasly yesterday in qualifying meant that he didn't get to set his final flying lap time. But yeah, flop team being Ferrari. They are slower than I thought they were going to be. Like predictions for me yesterday, you can go back and watch the stream. I can't really hide from it. I think I said McLaren will be quickest, then it will be Max Verstappen, then it will be Ferrari, and Mercedes will be the slowest of the top 4 teams. It's kind of the inverse, isn't it? You know, like we've kind of flipped that completely around. Ferrari have dropped behind Mercedes pretty substantially. Mercedes look like the quickest car out of those top 4 teams. And, you know, McLaren still sitting behind Max Verstappen rather than in front of Max Verstappen in terms of pace yesterday in qualifying. So that flop team being Ferrari, I think you guys might have got it more right than I've got it. Again, still the race to come. But at the moment, I was wrong. You were right. I'm adult enough that I can accept that. But the race is still to come. Ferrari 1-2. We'll see it happen. In terms of the Drivers' Championship, I'll pop that up as well. A couple of people asking about the Drivers' Championship when we were talking about the Constructors. Answer my question. What is your question? I'm Singaporean, and the NS Square was preceded by the Float Marina Bay. What? What is that a question? I don't know what your question is. McLaren should get it together. Ferrari is already breaking my heart. Winner Piastri, podium Russell and Hamilton. Surprise Behrman. Best team Haas. Struggle Norris. Flop team Red Bull Racing. Cool. That is punchy. That is a punchy prediction if ever I have seen it. Is Lando out of the championship? Does he lack what it takes to be a champion? No, he's not out of the championship. Like, he's only 25 points behind Oscar Piastri. There's still 7 races to run at this point. I know it's going to be 6 post Singapore, but certainly not over yet. He has surprised me this season, I think, in his lack of tenacity. He hasn't had any races yet where he's been sort of punchy, dominant, at least from what I can remember. Maybe I'm just, forgetting some of the really early races. There's always that recency bias that we all have in our own heads. But I can't remember a weekend this season where I've been like, that was a real marker from Lando Norris. Maybe Austria is the only one. But even at that point in the year, it was still looking a little bit sort of shaky from Lando Norris. I would have just loved to have seen a bit more emotion. Every single time something goes wrong for Lando, he just seems to take it in his stride, and I'm sure he does care. Like, it's silly to say that he doesn't care. He's dedicated his entire life to trying, or his life from a very, very early age, to becoming a Formula One driver, to try and win the world championship. He's been the man that has kind of carried this McLaren team through this new iteration. Beforehand, we had Fernando Alonso and Stoffel Van Dorn. Then we kind of reset. We were like, okay, recalibrate. Zach Brown comes in, reformat the team. And Lando Norris has been there longer than most, in terms of sitting in that seat and building the team around him. And suddenly he's got the opportunity to win a championship. It's in front of him. Things just haven't gone his way, have they, unfortunately, for Lando, but certainly not over yet. I think he's a brilliant driver. Will he be remembered as one of the absolute greatest? Probably not. But you don't have to be one of the absolute best drivers ever to win a championship sometimes. I don't think, and this is gonna shock people because I'm a big Jenson Button fan. I don't think Jenson Button's one of the best drivers we've ever seen in Formula One history. He still managed to win a championship because he was given the right car at the right time, and he did the job that he needed to do, right? He delivered when he was given that opportunity. And sometimes in sport, you do just have to hit that right vein of form at that right time in the right place, and you're there. The float was previously a grandstand. It was used for multiple events. Yeah, I think it's like for fireworks or something, isn't it? The grandstand that they are redoing and restructuring, which is why we are missing the bump on the track. I mean, it does take 4 corners out of the track and makes it a lot smoother and a lot quicker. So I think they should probably just leave it as it is right now, to be honest. Bottled so much regularly. It's difficult to judge like bottling. I do appreciate that, yeah, from many fans' perspective and probably from his own perspective as well, there have been race weekends where it's almost like that feeling. A lot of golfers talk about this. I'm going to go here and there with the analogies in the sports, but a lot of golfers talk about the fact that sometimes when you're trying too hard to like really focus on the golf ball, you almost just end up whiffing, right? There's you can almost be in a headspace where you want to be in a flow state. You don't want to be thinking about anything at all. You just want almost your body to do the job for you without you having to actively think about what's happening in front of you. I think Lando Norris has just been in his own head maybe a few times this season, and I don't know. He hasn't done anything egregious. You could say the Canada crash, maybe the big one, but the big mistake. I don't think he's done anything ridiculously egregious in terms of making huge errors that have cost him dearly. I think Oscar Piastri's mistake in Azerbaijan is bigger than any mistake Lando Norris has made this season. Again, off the top of my head, I'm riffing, but I think that the mistake that Oscar made in the 2 mistakes that Oscar made in Azerbaijan, in the false start and then also smashing into the wall, are bigger than any of the mistakes Lando has made. You could even say the Australia crash, where he spins out in Australia and drops from 2nd to 9th, is the bigger of the mistakes as well. I don't think there's been anything egregious from Lando Norris. I just think, yeah, he has been not quite able to hit that real height that we've also seen from Oscar Piastri at points this season. I think Lando has just lacked a little bit. And I think that comes from him almost trying too hard. Yeah, Canada's the only one, isn't it? Canada's the only one that comes from me. But again, I think that was... Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big error, isn't it? But I think it's an error that comes from, again, him just sort of trying to force something that wasn't quite there and trying to force himself into a situation that didn't quite arise. Hello, Sarah. How's it going? I like how Norris handled Canada. Champion mentality before. Yeah, that's true. I think it was still early in the season as well. I think now that we're getting towards the real tail end of the season, though, I'd like to see a bit more vigor from Lando Norris. You know, we're in the final quarter of the season after this race. So we'll only have 6 Grand Prix remaining. So I think I just want to see him. I want to see him, you know, flare his nostrils a bit and get out there, get amongst it. Try and actually force the issue a little bit more. Technically speaking, Oscar didn't actually crash in Oz. All right, yeah. Spin? Do you want me to use the word spin? Yeah, you're right. Like, he did continue. He finished in 9th. But again, it's maybe a bigger error. In terms of points, would that have cost him more points than Lando's Canada hit? What did so Lando lost 10 points in Canada? I think Oscar lost more than 10 points in Australia. So he would have finished 2nd and finished 9th. I don't know. We're going right back to the first race of the season. But yeah, that's more than 10 points. So Oscar's mistake in Australia was a bigger mistake points-wise than Lando's mistake in Canada. Sorry, James, but honestly, the McLarens will collide at the start of the race. Both of them out. I mean, at least it would be something. Because the championship battle is starting to wane a little bit, isn't it? I feel like the only problem with that, like if you're right, Rashan, and we do see both of the McLaren cars collide at the start of the race, if Max then goes on to win, like he'd be in a very tidy position. Where would he be? 19 points off Lando Norris? Which is still a lot with 6 races to go, but there's also 3 sprint races in there. And Verstappen's looking pretty quick as well. So you'd be 19 points off the back of Lando Norris, 44 points off the back of Piastri. It's still a long way to go, isn't it? Like, that's the thing. We're talking about Max Verstappen possibly being in the fold for the championship. But even if that happens, so if Lando and Oscar take each other out, Max Verstappen wins and he gets the 25 points on the board, he is still, just making sure my maths is right, 5 gets him to 60, 20 gets him to 280. Yeah, he'd still be 19 points and 44 points behind the 2 McLarens in 2nd and 1st place. Can Hamilton score 200 points by the end of the season? No. I don't think so. It would take a win again. It would take a Hamilton victory somewhere, like 25 points on the board. I think 180 is doable. 200 is going to be really quite tricky for Lewis Hamilton to reach, to be honest. Like even 180, 60 points would average 10 points a race. No, even that actually, it's pretty tough. Like that's 5th place every race. But then there's the couple of sprint races in there, which maybe just give you 3 or 4 points extra. I'd say 180 is possible for Lewis Hamilton. 200 is going to be... 200 would need a win, I think. Has Yuki run out of excuses for his lack of form? Does he now have the same car upgrades as Max? Replacing Isaac Hadjar will destroy a promising rookie's career. I think the problem that Yuki Tsunoda had, and I mean, this even happened before the start of the season, he already, like, Red Bull already chose Lawson over him. And, you know, Yuki has now got, what, 5 seasons in F1? I think 2021 was his debut season. So Yuki is running out of excuses, yeah. I think, you know, when you've had 4 seasons, this is now his 5th season in F1. I know he's adapting to a new car. I know it's difficult. We've seen that it's a very, very hard car for anybody to drive. Sergio Perez started to wane away, but if you look at where Sergio Perez was last year compared to Yuki Tsunoda now, I think they are regretting getting rid of Sergio Perez. Didn't think I'd say that when it happened in December. In December, I was like, finally, we've got rid of Sergio Perez. We're going to get to see somebody else in that seat. I was actually really excited to see what Liam Lawson could do. But I think Sergio Perez is now looking at the 20 points Yuki Tsunoda has accumulated over the season so far and probably rubbing his hands together. The fact he's also got a Cadillac contract, looking pretty swift for him too. Yeah, Sergio Perez has come out of this as a big winner. Yuki Tsunoda is kind of the loser from that, isn't he? Didn't get the choice over Lawson, then has to come in 2 races into the season, so already is missing all of the practice that you get before the season starts and all of the testing runtime, which would have been brilliant for him. So now he's almost doing his testing during the season, and it's taken a long time for Yuki Tsunoda to really click with that car. And even when it clicks, it's not, you know, weekend after weekend. It's one weekend, really stands out, brilliant, then just doesn't quite happen the next time around, and then has one weekend where it looks promising again, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe. He hasn't been able to find any routine. There's no consistency there for Yuki Tsunoda. It's very peak and trough, isn't it? Very up and down. This season reminds me of 2007, where Kimi was far away from the title fight. He won it by 1 point. Imagine Verstappen wins the title by 1 to 4 points. I mean, don't get me wrong, as I just said, like 44 points. He'd be 44 points off Piastri with 7 races to go. And that suddenly starts, 6 races to go. That suddenly starts to be, you know, within contention, doesn't it? It suddenly starts to be reality, because we go, well, okay, if he can get another couple of first place finishes, we know that Max Verstappen can win 10 races in a row if he's given the opportunity to do so. So it's not like we have any doubts around whether Max Verstappen can be consistent enough to win Grand Prix after Grand Prix after Grand Prix. We've seen him do it. I just think it's still too far. It's still too far. I want to believe it's still too far. Right. The reason I want to believe it's still too far, and like this will maybe come out on the podcast as well, because the guys on the podcast were also talking about Verstappen in the championship, and I think it was Mr. V who made a joke about Lando Norris finishing behind Max Verstappen in the championship by the end of the year, which could very much still happen, but I'm really hoping it doesn't, because I've been a McLaren fan for a very long time. You know, I got into Formula One back in 2007, 8, 9, that kind of realm. And mainly became a McLaren fan because it was where Jenson Button moved to, and was a big fan of Jenson Button, then kind of built my fandom around that. You've got to think, for the McLaren fans that have been around since then, you know, I didn't see the Hamilton Championship win live. I was not like a super big fan of Formula One at that point. I probably watched a couple of races here and there. It was probably on, you know, in my household, but wouldn't have watched that full season. So I never got to see McLaren with Hamilton, Alonso winning championships, winning races in that way. I've then had to go through the Jenson Button, Lewis Hamilton era, where we were told that we were going to be winning championships, and it never quite clicked. We won races here and there. Then it really started to tank. Alonso came, Stoffel Van Dorn, you know, that era, GP2 engine. Like, I've had to go through that as a McLaren fan too. I've had to sit and watch as, you know, we went from winning championships just before my era to them watching it absolutely tank and be the worst team on the grid. And then I've kind of also followed this rebuild where, again, we were told it was going to be really good. And we kind of had our ups and downs. Seen Alpine beat us to 4th place in the championship in 2022 when it should have been us. You know, like even those things where it's like every single time it's felt like there was going to be an opportunity for McLaren to kind of take a step forward. It hasn't happened. Finally, it's clicked. Finally, we've got a few races. Like, if you want to see how ridiculously I celebrated when Lando Norris won that race in Miami last year, just go back and watch that VOD. I lose my head. No, like, I waited a long time for a championship-worthy car. Constructors' Championship victory last year is kind of the first step. But my God, I just want to see a Drivers' Champion. I just want to live and breathe and believe that I will see a Drivers' Championship win for McLaren. Like in my lifetime would be great. I know I'm only in my 20s and there's more time to come, but as a Formula One fan, you want to see your team win something. And I've waited 10 plus years. I want to see it. I don't want to see Max come from like 70 points behind and win the championship. As much as it would be incredible, and as much as it would be the like most ridiculous Formula One story you can imagine, I don't want it to happen. I don't want Max to win. I want to see a McLaren World Drivers' Champion. Just the one, because 2026 is probably going to be like Mercedes or Aston Martin as well. And then I'm going to have to go back to being a McLaren fan and probably us like falling down to the midfield in some way and Piastri moving to Mercedes to win his 2nd world championship. And that's fine. But I just want to see one. I just want to see one. I'm your newest sub. Thank you very much for subscribing. Thank you, Sally, for also thanking the new subs. Lots of new subs there as well. Am I Quebblecop? I don't know who that is. I've heard that name, but I don't know who that is. I maybe look like him. I get told that I look like a lot of people, if I'm honest. But anyway, that's my rant on why I'm just begging Max Verstappen to not win the championship. Where can I find this podcast? Just search for Crash Happy in YouTube. Or there is a link down in the description below. It is me, Mr. V, Mr. Pulse, Dan No Skill, Formula Duck. The 5 of us have kind of started a Formula One podcast / just like a general place for us to make videos together. It's called Crash Happy. Get involved. We're nearing 8,000 subscribers on that channel. And it's only been around for like 3 or 4 weeks. So you're getting in on the ground floor, even if you go over there and subscribe right now. But you could always come back, you know, when we're the biggest Formula One podcast with knocking Matt and Tommy off their perch. You can go, well, I was in the first 10,000. 20 minutes until the race, though. Shall we actually look at the grid? We've been talking about championships. We've been talking about the possibility of the future of this season. But the near future is, of course... the near future is, of course, the Singapore Grand Prix that we are going to all watch together. The live timing's gonna load for me. There we go. Multi-viewer just having a moment. That is our starting grid. And you'll notice a couple of little changes on there from yesterday that we will get into in just a moment's time. Let me also just check, because I'm worried now if multi-viewer was having a moment with bringing up that. Is it also going to have a moment with bringing up things like the track map? Let's have a little look. Oh, no, it should be fine. It is fine. It was just having a second. Do I think Max could pull a second in the championship? Again, I hope not. But it's not the most ridiculous thing in the world. We just did the maths on it. So if Max wins today and Oscar and Lando take each other out like Vettel Raikkonen style, then he's only 19 points behind Lando Norris. So that is not a fun place to be if you are a Lando Norris fan, because Max Verstappen being in your rear wing mirrors, it's just not a great place to be. I mean, Max Verstappen in any sense is not a great place to be when you're competing against him, is he? We saw it last year where Lando was trying to catch up to Max, and it was horrible. Now we're seeing Lando trying to keep Max behind. It's also horrible. Like, it's just horrible to be up against Max Verstappen. Just not the kind of guy that you want to see lining up beside you on a racetrack, is he? I mean, GT3 got to learn that as well. He went over there. He pulled out a 62-second lead and absolutely demolished the GT3 grid a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago. So you just don't want to be next to Max Verstappen in any capacity. Race at the top of the hour? It is indeed. We are 12:44 my time. Just taking a look at Martin's grid walk right now. He's meeting Lewis Capaldi and Lewis Capaldi's brother, who does look like Lewis Capaldi as well, is what we've learned today. Could I read your question? You've kept saying this, but I don't know where your question is. If it's lost in the ethers of the chat, you can see the chat here. As soon as it goes off of this screen, it's gone. Max is like the meme of Thanos. He is inevitable. It does feel like that, doesn't it? It does feel like that. We are 16 minutes away from the start of the race, though, so the national anthem is playing. Anyone who's seen that short will know that exactly 16 minutes before the formation lap is when the national anthem is played. That is the way it is. And they are siblings. Very true. Yeah, but like not all siblings look the same. I wouldn't say, well, to be fair, both of my siblings are female. But I wouldn't say I look like either of them. And I wouldn't say that they look like each other either, so. Lewis Capaldi times 2. What will be better here, the overcut or the undercut? Ooh. See, this is the thing. We don't know whether it's going to be, it's probably going to be a one-stop. Probably going to be a one-stop strategy, and therefore there's not likely to be too much in it. Like Oscar Piastri yesterday was saying, he's sort of hoping for a two-stop. If it's a two-stop, then the longevity that the McLaren cars can put into their tyres will play into his favour, obviously, and he'll be in a lot better situation moving forwards. But if it's a one-stop, I think he said, you know, then he's praying for rain. And the rain, unfortunately, has already come. So it's looking pretty dry right now on the track. So when is the race starting? About 15 minutes away. We've just had the national anthem and we're ready to go. Shall we run down the grid? I know I've just had it on screen for a couple of seconds, but for anybody who wasn't here for yesterday's qualifying stream, why not? Make sure you're here. We live for every single competitive session moving forwards. Next up is Texas, which is a sprint weekend. So we're going to be live for all 4 competitive sessions for the sprint qualifying, the sprint race, then qualifying for the Grand Prix and the Grand Prix itself, plus an additional bonus stream for the members after the Grand Prix. Another bonus members only post-race show for you guys today as well. But yeah, the all the setup ready to go for this Grand Prix. Please add F1 in your username. First searches on YouTube ranks your videos lower for lives as well. Unfortunately, Formula 1 is not very nice to people who put F1 in their usernames. So what's the weather temp? It is currently 33 degrees track temperature, 28.8 degrees air temperature, and 81% humidity. It's just so damp, isn't it? It's just so damp and clings to you in Singapore. 81% humidity inside of those Formula 1 cars. Oof, goodness me. But yeah, that Williams double disqualification does change it up a little bit. Let's start at the top. George Russell, a stunning stunning drive from George Russell yesterday. He even said after qualifying he thought that this track was probably going to be one of the bottom 3 tracks for the Mercedes car throughout the entire year, and it is not a track that suits that Mercedes car in any sense of the word. But George Russell did what he does best, turns up on a Saturday. There's a reason they used to call him Mr. Saturday. It's kind of disappeared, hasn't it, the Mr. Saturday trope for George Russell. Let's bring that back, because it was another Mr. Saturday masterclass from George Russell. He put himself on pole position. Max Verstappen just missed out. Was running pretty close, though, was Max Verstappen. I think he was up by about 100th of a second out of the second sector. And then there was a slow-moving McLaren in front of Max Verstappen as he came through turn 17, which he was not happy about. And again, we were talking just a minute ago about Lando Norris probably not wanting to have to battle with Max Verstappen too much towards the end of the season. Max Verstappen then comes out of that qualifying session and says, there was a McLaren in front of me. It's been noted. And that he's going to get his revenge. So Lando Norris literally making an enemy of Max Verstappen at the worst possible point, I think. Not a very good idea from Lando Norris. Max Verstappen, bit between his teeth, starts in second place. And GameStar, thank you so much for the super chat, says Max will take the lead at the start into turn 1. Boring and dominant race win for Verstappen. I mean, let's hope not. Let's hope not, shall we? You know, let's make sure that it is a little bit more entertaining. I mean, Max Verstappen taking the lead at the start doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a bad race, because I'm pretty sure George Russell will be doing everything in his power to take that back from him. And Oscar Piastri will be doing everything in his power to elongate his lead at the front of the championship from his teammate. He starts in 3rd place, just behind the top 2. Weirdly sort of disappointing / unpredictable nature of McLaren this weekend. Everybody expecting the McLaren to be really, really strong, including all of the other teams. Like George Russell said himself, he was expecting the McLarens to be a lot stronger here than they actually are. Piastri saying he got the best out of the car, and 3rd place was the best that he could do. So he starts on the 2nd row of the grid, just behind George Russell and Max Verstappen. Kimi Antonelli showing that it wasn't just George Russell, but maybe the Mercedes car also being a bit quicker than expected. He got himself up into P4, and it was an up and down qualifying session for Kimi Antonelli, wasn't it? A couple of mistakes in Q1, then had to pull a lap out of the bag right towards the end of the Q1 session. Similar in Q2, like left it late to get his lap time on the board, but that lap time was there for him to grab, and a 4th place start for Kimi Antonelli is a brilliant start for him. Hopefully gives him a bit more confidence inside of that Mercedes car moving forwards, because he needs it. Then going to the 3rd row of the grid, we have Lando Norris, the championship contender, 25 points behind Oscar Piastri after last weekend's Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And, 2 weeks ago, the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, Lando Norris. He needs to do something. He's going to be looking at the rear wing of his teammate just in front of him, knowing that he needs to really get in front of that teammate if the championship is going to really go down to the wire in these final 6 Grand Prix that we have got. Lewis Hamilton out-qualified Charles Leclerc. 6th place start for Lewis Hamilton, although, as he said, he probably should have been a lot further forward than 6th place. The Ferrari felt like it had more pace and then just started to fall apart a little bit. Oh, thank you, Sebastian, for the $10 super chat. Thank you so much. That's ridiculous. You really didn't have to. Antonelli podium, my prediction. That would be very fun indeed. An Antonelli podium. Hasn't been on the podium since Canada, of course, the Italian. I think he's deserving of another podium, isn't he? He's done a pretty decent job, all considered. Like, I think Antonelli's had an okay season generally. I think it's been very, very tough for him, but it was always going to be tough. He's incredibly young. Like, I did the maths on it yesterday, and he can have 5 seasons in Formula One and still be the youngest Formula One world champion. So if he wins the championship in 2029, which will be his 5th season in the sport, he'll still be the youngest Formula One champion there has ever been. That is how young Kimi Antonelli is. Like, he is coming into the sport very, very young indeed. Oh, thank you for the membership as well. Moto Hollands. Everybody's being very generous today. The Singapore Grand Prix, it's on the wall. Like, it's got something about it. Couple of super chats, a membership as well. Thank you so much, Moto Holland. Appreciate that. Welcome to the channel. 7 minutes remaining indeed. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton is where we're up to. We talk about him just about out-qualifying Charles Leclerc in 7th place. Leclerc starts alongside Isaac Hadjar, who was best of the rest yesterday. Hadjar, again, best of the rest. Only the big 4 teams in front of him, but we're still disappointed. Like, it is the mentality of Isaac Hadjar I love and I hate as well. Like, I love the fact that he wants to do better, and I love the fact that he's always chasing better and better performances, but sometimes I'd like to see him actually celebrate a good lap, you know, celebrate a decent qualifying session. 8th place start, only the big 4 teams ahead of you. It's a very decent lap, Isaac. Like, take the wins sometimes, but that is the way. He is been watching for a while, may as well become a member. Thank you so much, mate. Appreciate that. What's my top 3? Oof, not sure. We'll get there. But yeah, Isaac Hadjar starting best of the rest in 8th place. I think we'll finish best of the rest. The RB car is generally pretty strong around here. Like, Liam Lawson had a really good race here a couple of years ago. Daniel Ricciardo got the fastest lap, of course, here last year in his final race in Formula One. Like, the RB, AlphaTauri, however you want to see it, usually goes pretty well around Singapore. Ollie Behrman, the surprise of qualifying for me, was not expecting the Haas car to be anywhere near the top 10, to be honest with you. I was expecting maybe both Racing Bulls, maybe a Williams, maybe an Aston Martin in there. But Ollie Behrman was not on my bingo card. He starts in 9th place, and a really, really solid start from him. Will he be able to get points in the Haas? It's pretty tricky to overtake here, so I think the elbows are going to be out for Ollie Behrman as he tries to keep Fernando Alonso behind. Alonso starting in the final point-scoring place, and those 10 drivers making their way through to Q3 yesterday. Nico Hülkenberg starts in 11th place, just outside of the points. Then there's a little bit of a switch around. You'll notice that Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon are no longer in 12th and 13th place. Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon both disqualified from qualifying yesterday due to their rear wing. The opening of the DRS is only allowed to be 85 millimeters, and it was bigger on both sides. So the rear wing illegal on Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon's cars, and therefore they are just disqualified. Like, it was one of those things I was going to try and like make an excuse for them, but nope. You just breaks the rules, disqualified, out you go. So Carlos Sainz started from 18th place, and Alex Albon actually deciding to start from the pit lane and make some changes to his Williams car. So he drops all the way to 20th. And as I say, we'll start from the pit lane. That means Liam Lawson jumps up into 12th place, just a couple of places outside of the points. I think he'll be gunning for a point scoring finish. I would expect Liam Lawson to be finishing in the points here this weekend, just showing the pace of the RB. He said himself that he should really be higher up had he not made those couple of mistakes in free practice, which cost him quite a lot of lap time. I think Liam Lawson's got the bit between his teeth. Yuki Tsunoda also qualified 15th yesterday. He starts in 13th, though, moves up a couple of places. Again, soft compound tyres on Yuki Tsunoda's car. He'll be looking to move forward as quickly as he possibly can, considering he is starting 11 places behind his teammate. Gabriel Bortoleto just missed out on getting through to Q2. Very tight indeed. The yellow flags being waved for Pierre Gasly didn't help him. He starts in 14th place. I think it's going to be a long race for anybody starting sort of beyond Tsunoda, to be honest. Bortoleto starting 14th. Lance Stroll and Colapinto starting 15th and 16th place. And then at the back of the grid, Esteban Ocon and Carlos Sainz will start in 17th and 18th place. Pierre Gasly, after that problem with his Alpine car, starts in 19th, but from the pit lane, joined by Alex Albon, as I mentioned before, at the back of the pack. So they will have to join in the Grand Prix after everybody has already made their way through turns 1 and turn 2. The exit of the pit lane coming out just between sort of turn 2 and turn 3, really, on the outside of turn 2. Oh my god, Sebastian with another $10 super chat. Nico finishing top 8, nothing more. Okay. I mean, Nico Hulkenberg starting 11th. It's 3 places, though. But you look at the cars in front of him. Is Hulkenberg quicker than Alonso, Behrman, and Hadjar? Like, that's going to be a tough little battle in the midfield there for Hadjar, or for Hulkenberg, sorry, to get up ahead of Isaac Hadjar. I think I could see it happening, but maybe. The only Twitch viewer. Well, thank you, Rockstar. I appreciate it. Yeah, the majority of the viewers. It's only I started doing these on Twitch alongside YouTube when I moved house because I could get better internet. So yeah, these. If you could go over and follow the Twitch, that would be absolutely amazing. But the Twitch is a slow build, I feel like. Leclerc crash on lap 12. What very specific prediction as we get into the final minute before we get underway. Let's just double check that everything is loaded up. Bada bing, bada boom. And there you go. Then you can see the tyres being confirmed. Max Verstappen starting on a slightly scrubbed set of soft compound tyres. Won't have had a fresh set after he used all of his sets in qualifying yesterday. But Verstappen starting on a slightly scrubbed set. The medium compound tyre for the majority of the grid. Isaac Hadjar, the next driver to be starting again on scrubbed set of softs. Fernando Alonso also going for a scrubbed set of softs as well. The drivers there on the soft compound tyre trying to take advantage of the fact that the soft compound tyre will have more grip off the start. So trying to move those positions up the grid early on, and hope that even as the soft compound tyre starts to fall away as the laps continue to fall, they'll have enough in the tank and the track won't allow the guys behind on the medium tyre to gain enough and be able to actually overtake into any of those few overtaking zones that we have got. Main one down towards turn 1. You do get quite a bit of DRS down towards turn 7 as well. Not impossible to go for an overtake down there. Get DRS down towards turn 16 as well, so you can maybe try and go for a move through turn 16, but I feel like more likely to go for it down towards turn 1. You can also see there's green markers on the track. Everybody always asks, so I'll just explain now. There's green markers on the track are the DRS detection points. Have to be within a second of the car in front of you to gain DRS advantage through those points. DRS currently not activated, but they will turn green on the track once they are activated. You can see Pierre Gasly there inside of the pit lane, getting himself set up for his pit lane start as we are on the formation lap, watching George Russell and Max Verstappen at the front of the pack. Piastri also following closely. A little bit of a gap to Antonelli and Lando Norris. Hamilton and Leclerc then behind as well. Hadjar, Behrman and Alonso, the midfield cars starting inside of the points. And Gasly and Albon have finally been released from the pit lane then. So now coming around to actually join for the formation lap. They do, of course, join for the formation lap, then go back into the pit lane for their pit lane start to Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon. And then they have to wait for everybody to go past before they can then join the back of the pack in 19th and 20th place. George Russell, though, just coming up towards turn 14 now of the 19 corners of the Singapore Grand Prix. Lots of 90-degree bends. It's very Baku in a sense, that middle sector, isn't it? Very 90 degrees, very street circuit. And another $10 from Sebastian. Sebastian, you're basically paying my rent. Thank you so much, man. If George Russell wins, does this prove that Toto Wolff will have to get him a new long-term contract? Oh, that's a great question. I think we'll actually delve into that a little bit into the race, because I have a few opinions on why George Russell hasn't been given a contract yet and what Mercedes are trying to do with the whole George Russell contract situation. So yeah, we'll definitely delve into that. But I feel like we do have to have our eyes peeled on this grid at the moment, because we are heading in to the start of the Grand Prix. George Russell takes his spot, so does Verstappen and Piastri at the front of the pack. Car's heaviest at this point, waiting, watching on team principals with a little bit of tension, particularly looking at the McLaren lot there, as we see Yuki Tsunoda also taking his position there. Only 18 cars, of course, lining up. We've got Ocon coming around the final corner. Carlos Sainz following him in as well. And everybody taking their slot onto the grid. Safety car then comes in behind. Medical car, sorry. Waiting for that green flag to be waved, and 5 red lights between us and the start of this Singapore Grand Prix. Is it going to get tasty down towards turn 1? Here we go then. George Russell does indeed make a move. Lando Norris trying to get up behind Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri, though, trying to make a move. Lando Norris gets alongside his teammate. They're side by side, the two McLarens, as they go through turn 2 and turn 3. There's possibly even a little touch between the two Papaya cars, but Lando Norris is up ahead of his teammate, and Piastri drops down to 4th place. Kimi Antonelli has also copped a couple of positions down to 6th. Charles Leclerc got an incredible start for the Tifosi. He's up into 5th place. Fernando Alonso also a great start in the Aston Martin. He's up ahead of Isaac Hadjar and Ollie Behrman inside of the point scoring places. Hulkenberg and Lawson stay where they were. Yuki Tsunoda's been outdone by Franco Colapinto, who's now up into 13th place, and Tsunoda actually continuing to fall as he then also gets done by Lance Stroll. Isaac Hadjar makes a move on Fernando Alonso and gets that position back. So Isaac Hadjar back up into 8th place. Alonso's down to 9th. Ollie Behrman still 10th and inside of the points. But it was a move up the inside from Lando Norris, and there was definitely contact between the two Papaya cars. And now we're going to see a little bit of a fight between these two. Oscar Piastri sits behind his teammate Lando Norris after the opening few corners. Coming towards the end of the middle sector now. George Russell comes towards turn 15 through turn 16. Of course, no DRS activated on lap 1. But currently should be activated for lap 2 of this Grand Prix. Here comes George Russell then. Oscar Piastri gets a little bit out of shape on the braking down towards turn 16 and actually makes a little bit of a mistake. That's opened up a gap for Lando Norris to run ahead of his teammate. The gap now over a second for Piastri. And the DRS activated, but it's not going to be able to be used by Piastri unless he can close that gap now. Charles Leclerc also looking at the rear wing of the McLaren car and trying to take advantage of that little mistake from Oscar Piastri. Piastri on the radio. And Oscar Piastri not very happy at all. Wasn't very team-like, says Oscar Piastri on the radio. And this is what I mean, though. I want to see this from the two McLaren cars. I think they don't need to be teamly at this point in the season. The constructor standings is pretty much done and dusted. And Yuki Tsunoda is also having a little battle with Esteban Ocon, but can't do it. And Esteban Ocon has now taken 16th place from Tsunoda. Tsunoda falling like a sitting duck in that second Red Bull car. And yeah, there is a bounce there between Lando Norris had to brake so to not hit into the back of Max Verstappen, but then also weave to the right-hand side and collided with Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris, actually, that front wing end plate on the left-hand side of the McLaren car is hanging on by a thread. Oscar Piastri, though, trying to gain on his teammate. 1.8 seconds the gap, though, between Norris and Piastri. So not looking overly competitive at this moment in time. Thank you all for the subscriptions that are coming in. Loads of subscribers signing up for the channel. Massively appreciate that. Max Verstappen, 1.5 seconds behind George Russell. So those soft compound tyres not quite doing the thing he was hoping to, as George Russell then sets the fastest lap of the race with a 1:39.1. Lando Norris is within striking distance of Verstappen, and Oscar Piastri on the radio. And Piastri on the radio still not happy about it. Are we okay with Lando just barging me out of the way, says Oscar Piastri on the radio. It's going to be something that the two McLaren drivers have to debate after the race. But for now, they've got 60 laps ahead of them, trying to catch up to George Russell and Max Verstappen at least. And a small amount of front wing damage has been confirmed to Lando Norris. He won't be able to see it from inside of the cockpit, but he'll certainly be able to feel it as the car trying to break through these tricky middle section corners. He's making his way now through turn 12 down towards turn 13. Has the DRS behind Max Verstappen. Verstappen on the soft compound tyre will still have the tyre advantage, you would imagine, at this point in the race. But Lando Norris is closing into the back of the Dutchman. And of course, Max Verstappen yesterday was not very happy with Lando Norris's driving. Be interesting to see how Max Verstappen reacts if Lando Norris does go for some kind of maneuver here early on in this Singapore Grand Prix. We're expecting it to be a one-stop strategy, so Max Verstappen will likely pit sooner rather than Lando Norris, who will pit later, but they'll only pit once and likely both go onto the hard compound tyre as they are. So be interesting to see when Max Verstappen does pit, what kind of pace Lando Norris can unleash, and whether he'll be able to get that undercut on Max Verstappen. Piastri on the radio, still reviewing that incident. We'll look at it, but we need to just focus on what we've got to do here. Control the controllables. So Piastri still on the radio, still not happy about the incident between him and his teammate, but the team just telling him, look, we are looking into it. It is what it is. We're going to have to continue on as we are right now. And Lando Norris coming around to fight with Max Verstappen. And now just slowly falling away. Lando Norris still within DRS of Max Verstappen, but 0.6 of a second has now elongated to 8.5 of a second. Alonso up 2 places. Yeah, it was a really good start from Fernando Alonso. Had a nice battle with Isaac Hadjar on the first lap as well, where he came out on top. And now sitting best of the rest, Fernando Alonso. Isaac Hadjar 9th. Ollie Behrman drops down to 10th place. And Hulkenberg and Lawson still just outside of the points by a margin. But Nico Hulkenberg does have DRS to Ollie Behrman. Behrman has DRS to Hadjar. Hadjar has DRS to Alonso. So Fernando Alonso, as he's done a few times this season, just creating his own train in the midfield pack there. Is he doing what he did? Was it in Hungary, where he just held the entire grid up for a few seconds and then unleashed the pace of the Aston Martin to make sure that nobody could get the better of him in the pit stops? Feel like Fernando Alonso is wily enough to play into that fact. Looking at the championship now, though, a few people were asking about it before the race. As it stands, George Russell winning the Grand Prix and Max Verstappen in second, ahead of Lando Norris and Piastri. The fact that Kimi Antonelli has fallen down to 6th, though, would mean that Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri would win the Constructors' Championship for McLaren after this race. I mean, it's done and dusted anyway, but it would be officially done and dusted, as they would have more than a 303-point lead going into the final 6 races of the season. Only 303 points available to the teams. I mean, it's done. But we can have a little look at the championship for you at this point. McLaren would indeed do it. 650 points they would have at the end of the Grand Prix if it stopped right now. Mercedes only on 323, more than enough of a gap to confirm them as championship winners. Oscar Piastri would gain 12 points to Lando Norris's 15, though, so that margin would drop to a 22-point gap between the two McLaren cars, currently a 25-point gap just before the race. Let's have a little look. We are replaying Isaac Hadjar's. Oh, and there's a contact between Hadjar and Behrman, and that's what allowed Fernando Alonso the opportunity to move up a couple of places. Ollie Behrman tried to go around the outside of Isaac Hadjar, and unfortunately, just Isaac Hadjar nowhere to go. Hadjar was looking at Lewis Hamilton to the left of him, Ollie Behrman to the right of him, and two Ferrari drivers, three drivers going into turn two was never going to really happen. So Isaac Hadjar losing out a little bit there. Fernando Alonso taking the opportunity to gain those couple of places. Ollie Behrman stays behind in 10th place. Oscar Piastri on the radio once more. And won't take any action during the race. We can review further afterwards. And Piastri being told on the radio, focus on this race. And Piastri starting to lose his temper a little bit. It's not a side of Piastri that we see very often, is it? Where Piastri gets a little bit hot under the collar, but he is not very happy at all with his championship rival and current teammate after what happened in turn one. We are now 7 laps into the Grand Prix. Piastri still on the radio discussing it with the team, and George Russell putting in the fastest lap of the race so far. Russell now 3.5 seconds ahead of Verstappen, and I'll tell you what, Mercedes have found some real pace here this weekend. I know Kimi Antonelli has dropped down a couple of places after the start of the race. It was, I think, just, again, that little bit of naivety maybe that Antonelli has compared to the drivers around him, and just got a little bit caught out by the chaos that is the first corner at Singapore. But George Russell is showing the legs that the Mercedes car has this weekend and is starting to run away victorious. Max Verstappen, 3.5 seconds adrift. Still on that soft compound tyre, Max Verstappen as well, has to be remembered. The only driver inside of the top 7 on the soft compound tyre. So Max Verstappen will be looking for an opportunity to pit a little bit earlier than the rest of his competitors. Could play into his favour, of course, if he comes out in a nice little slot. But if there is traffic, we could have a problem. There's now a yellow flag being waved just between turn 6 and turn 7. Let's have a little look. DRS has been disabled down that straight. Yellow flag, track sector 5. Oh, it's now gone. Maybe a little bit of debris or something on the track that they quickly wanted to grab, but DRS has now been enabled. Didn't affect any of the cars out on track, but a yellow flag being waved just for a moment there. And George Russell once again pumps in a fastest lap, a 1:36.7 from George Russell as he completes the 7th lap of the race, heading to lap 8 with a 3.5 second margin to Max Verstappen behind, and it's elongating, getting closer and closer to 4 seconds as we speak. Lando Norris has dropped outside of DRS range of Verstappen. He's now a couple of seconds adrift. Another 3 seconds to Oscar Piastri behind. So a little bit of a gap starting to open up between the two McLaren cars. Kimi Antonelli is actually the only driver inside of the top 8 that has DRS. Antonelli hunting down the rear end of Charles Leclerc, and maybe just showing the difference in pace between the top 4 cars, particularly the Mercedes and the other 3 teams, because Antonelli is closing into the back of Charles Leclerc and looking very racy indeed. Fernando Alonso holding on to that 8th place, but is falling away from that top 7 pretty substantially. A 4-second gap between him and Hamilton. And then DRS for Isaac Hadjar. Ollie Behrman has decided to get outside of that DRS window, maybe try and find some clean air. He's still running in 10th place. Hulkenberg, 1.5 seconds adrift in 11th. We then have Lawson, Colapinto, Stroll, Bortoleto, Ocon, Tsunoda, Sainz, Gasly and Albon running in that order outside of the point scoring places. Why would McLaren swap places? Oscar Piastri is just sort of talking about it because he's not very happy with Lando Norris bumping into him at the beginning of the race. And Lando Norris saying he thinks he's a lot quicker than the two cars in front of him. Hoping and waiting, I think, for Max Verstappen and George Russell's pace just to fall off a touch, holding onto his tyres, ready to pounce when he has the opportunity to do so. We know that the McLaren has generally been a lot softer on its tyres compared to the rest of the competitors. That front wing element still dangling off the McLaren car, though. Doesn't look to have moved, so I mean, as long as it doesn't fall off at any point, it should be okay. Instead, if it falls off and lands somewhere a little bit out of the way, or if it lands on the racing line. Lando's front end plate bended, but he's quicker than the front with the medium tyres. Well, I mean, we were expecting the McLaren car to be the quickest car this weekend. Just couldn't quite get it together when it came to qualifying, but I'm still expecting the McLaren still to have the better race pace of the cars. Just not being able to show it right now as he's a little bit trapped behind Max Verstappen is Lando Norris, and Verstappen's pace is starting to wane pretty quickly on that scrub set of soft compound tyres. Verstappen now nearly 5 seconds adrift of George Russell, and George Russell realising that he's got an opportunity to put in the lap times whilst Max Verstappen is holding up the rest of the pack. So George Russell making hay while the sun shines. He is absolutely flying ahead of the rest of the pack. Why is George Russell so far ahead? I think Max Verstappen is not as quick on race pace as he was yesterday in qualifying pace. And then also he's on the soft compound tyre, so he's having to manage his tyres quite a lot more. I think George Russell actually just using the pace of those medium tyres early, getting the lap times in whilst he can, and getting as big of a lead as possible, just in case, say, Lando Norris does manage to jump in front of Verstappen in the second stint. Lando Norris is the quicker of the two cars. Well, George Russell won't have to worry about that because he'll be 7 seconds, 8 seconds ahead of everybody else anyway. Is Lando Norris still furious about the Zandvoort DNF? I'd imagine so, yeah. Maybe not on the radio because he won't be thinking of that right now here in Singapore. But when it comes to the end of the season, if he doesn't end up being world champion, if he is within, 18 points of his teammate, I think he will be quite livid, yes. Max on softs, Lando on mediums, going for a longer stint. Oh yeah, most definitely. Lando will go quite long, I would imagine, on these medium tyres, and then also try and gain a bit of a tyre advantage going into the final part of the race when they go on to the harder compound tyre as well. I think it will be a big strategy race for Lando Norris. And also struggling with the downshifts is Max Verstappen. GP on the radio just asking about it, and Max Verstappen being not backwards and coming forwards, saying that he is not very happy about that Red Bull car at this moment in time. Still George Russell leading from Verstappen. Lando Norris on the podium places. Oscar Piastri, his teammate, just behind. Then Leclerc in 5th place still. Antonelli has fallen outside of DRS range. I think the Italian maybe a little bit aggressive in that first part of the race, trying to get ahead of Charles Leclerc early on, but then having to realise that it's all about the tactics here in Singapore. Dropping back to now a second and a half adrift of Charles Leclerc in 6th spot. And Lewis Hamilton will be frustrated that he's fallen back to 7th place, having out-qualified his teammate and now having to watch Charles Leclerc be nearly 3 seconds ahead. Fernando Alonso then 6.5 seconds the gap between the top 7 and 8th place Fernando Alonso. He's on the soft compound tyre. So is Isaac Hadjar, though, who is now close to within DRS range of Fernando Alonso again. So Hadjar maybe using the DRS to his advantage. The RB car possibly doesn't quite have the longevity and the pace that they were expecting. So sitting inside of the DRS range, or maybe they do think they've got an opportunity at going for an overtake. And Ollie Behrman still inside of the point scoring places, 1.7 seconds adrift of Isaac Hadjar. Nico Hulkenberg, the closest competitor, in 11th spot. With Cadillac, do you think they will establish their development system right away within the first 2 seasons, or wait till they're more established before they do that? I mean, they are already developing their developmental system, right? They've got Colton Herta coming over and doing Formula 2. So looks like Colton Herta is basically set up to go straight into one of those Cadillac seats as soon as he's got the super license points. So that's their first kind of development system. Then beyond that, depends, doesn't it? I think they will try and put together a junior team of some kind. I think it does really benefit you just having that choice of drivers, and also having those drivers available to you for tire tests and free practice 1 sessions that we know you have to get done, and simulation work and things like that. I think having young, hungry talent, it helps your team out a lot. I mean, Alex Dunn has just cut his ties with McLaren. So McLaren kind of doing really well at bringing in young drivers and then letting them go. Because Gabriel Bortoleto was the other one, right? Bortoleto came into the McLaren junior program only for a season and then disappeared off to Stake Sauber. Alex Dunn looking like he's going to do a similar kind of thing. He's McLaren junior, has now cut ties. There's apparently talks with Red Bull ongoing. So maybe Alex Dunn is going to sneak in front of Arvid Lindblad. We all kind of thought it would be Lindblad going into that second Red Bull team. Maybe Red Bull also having a little look at Alex Dunn. You never know. That's the rumor anyway. Not saying that that's likely to happen. Is Singapore a one-stop strategy? Yes, indeed. We were hoping it was going to be a 2-stop, but the track has been resurfaced. The tyres are lasting a lot longer than the teams were expecting, and Pirelli haven't been able to bring anything softer to this weekend. So it's looking, unfortunately, like is indeed going to be a one-stop strategy. Do you think any new rookie will come in to replace any old driver in one of the low-performing teams, or stay with the grid almost the same alongside the addition of Cadillac? I think Yuki Tsunoda's the one, right? Tsunoda likely to be replaced by Hadjar. That has then a little knock-on effect to the sister team. I think everybody else is pretty much set. Maybe Franco Colapinto moves to Alpine. But Williams aren't going to make a change. Sauber aren't going to make a change. Haas aren't going to make a change. Aston aren't going to make a change. Like, I think the majority of teams are set up and ready to go for the rest of this season and also for 2026 from this point forwards. And here we are then. A wing change down at Sauber for Gabriel Bortoleto, who has indeed got some damage to the front right side of his wing. Yuki Tsunoda has come in for Red Bull as well. So Bortoleto and Tsunoda. And Lando Norris has also hit the wall. So he said, I've hit the wall. Keep an eye on that right side. And he did indeed clip the wall pretty substantially there, Lando Norris. But that is what it is. Doesn't seem to have cost him too much time. He's still just over 1 second behind Max Verstappen. Although Verstappen now nearly 8 seconds adrift. Gabriel Bortoleto, that damage to his front wing coming from just a bump with Lance Stroll at the start of the Grand Prix, and Bortoleto obviously struggling with that, so deciding to eventually come in, swap those tyres around, and also get himself a new front wing on that Stake Sauber car. He'll now be in 20th place, but we'll have a little bit of clean air to run into. 4 seconds adrift of Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda coming in very early indeed, but again, just maybe wanting that clean air at this point in the race. Yes, they're going to have to go very, very far indeed on those hard compound tires. But if, like Russell is doing now, Tsunoda can really put in the lap times and get that undercut on a few of the drivers ahead, then it will play into his favor. Although now Franco Colapinto is also coming into the pits. If he comes out ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, it's going to kind of ruin the Red Bull's chances of doing that, because the Alpine is going to be in front and slowing him down. And I think Colapinto is going to come out pretty easily ahead of Tsunoda. Yeah, he is indeed. So Tsunoda's now in a really awkward position moving forwards now that Franco Colapinto has pitted early as well. All takes is a safety car to bunch the cars together. That's very true. Yeah, a safety car would play into those guys that are pitted now. They need to close the gap a little bit, because obviously you do gain quite a bit by pitting under the safety car. But if you can be within the right margin, you've already got your pit stop done, you can really play into your favor. So Colapinto, Tsunoda, Bortoleto have pitted early on. And Colapinto actually, I think, has come out on the medium tire. An interesting one. Maybe Colapinto going for a two-stop strategy. And Lando Norris, what do you think about the undercut on Max? He says it'll be easy. 1.1 seconds adrift of Lando. Oscar Piastri has fallen to 5 seconds off the back of Lando Norris. And it is looking likely that Lando Norris will get the jump on Max Verstappen. I mean, Mercedes have got themselves an 8-second lead, so it's not going to be making up that much time, is Lando Norris, but certainly second place is available here for Lando. And Oscar Piastri looking pretty much destined for 4th place. Charles Leclerc finishing 5th, Kimi Antonelli 6th, Hamilton 7th. It's not looking like there's too much movement that will happen unless there is a safety car. Because you lose about 25 seconds here in a pit stop. Drops down to about 12, 13 seconds underneath the safety car conditions. So could save you a solid 10 seconds during your pit stop if there is indeed a safety car. So that's the other thing I think you need to take into account. Not looking like there'll be a safety car anytime soon, though. We said this about Azerbaijan last week, and never ended up being the red flags that we saw in qualifying, for instance, during the Grand Prix. So, as much as the teams might be hoping for a safety car, they shouldn't put all of their eggs into a safety car basket. Is George mathematically in the championship fight? Mathematically, yes. Realistically, no. Like Verstappen even, realistically, no. It's going to take a big, big double DNF for the two McLarens for anybody else to realistically be... even a DNF for the two McLarens. We worked it out earlier. If Lando and Piastri were to both DNF from this race and Max Verstappen were to win it, he would still be 44 points adrift of the championship lead, which is a lot of points going into 6 races, especially when you're expecting the cars at the front to be competitive continuing. You know, 44 points is not a lot of points if the McLaren cars are completely fallen off. Oh, box to overtake Verstappen. Box to overtake Verstappen from Lando Norris's perspective. So is Lando Norris going to box this lap then? He's going around turn 13. McLaren have done this a couple of times this year where they've just thrown out random sort of dupe radio messages. So maybe it's just McLaren having a little bit of fun over the radio, trying to get Max Verstappen to pit a little bit early. Oh, they are coming in, though. Lando Norris is coming in by the looks of things. The McLaren team are out there. Lando going to peel in? No, he does not. And a last-minute call to stay out. Lando Norris does indeed stay out. I think he'd get the overtake on Verstappen probably, but he would come out in a weird spot. Where's 25 seconds from Lando Norris right now? So Norris is 9, let's call it 10 seconds off the lead. So who's 25 seconds off the lead? To be fair, he'd come out in between Hamilton and Alonso, possibly. Oh no, sorry, 35, wouldn't it? So he would come out. Oh yeah, in like Alonso Hajar Behrman territory. Yeah, I don't think Lando Norris should really be pitting now. If I was his strategist, I think coming out in that mix of Alonso Hajar Behrman would not be fun, especially as Alonso's pace is nowhere near the pace of the top 7. You know, there's a big gap. I know there's a huge gap between Russell and Verstappen of nearly 9 seconds, but then there's an equally big gap between Hamilton and Alonso, another 9 seconds there. So definitely not the time to pit if you are Lando Norris, and I can understand why they decided to go against that decision to pit and overtake Verstappen. But Lando Norris now actually closing the gap to Verstappen anyway, not quite within DRS range yet, but Lando Norris just over a second. Could certainly be DRS by the time they get round to turn 4, where the DRS detection point is. And Oscar Piastri really struggling inside of his McLaren car. A 136.9 from Oscar Piastri. He's nearly 4.5 seconds behind. He is managing his tyres, of course, but 4.5 seconds is a long way to go for Oscar Piastri. If he's thinking that he's going to gain 4.5 seconds later on in the race, he's going to have to do something pretty special, is the Australian and current World Championship leader. Lando Norris, current gap to Fernando Alonso, there you go, that's what we wanted to see, is 21.5 seconds. So still not quite a pit stop. I think as soon as Alonso is far enough adrift, Lando Norris will come in. So Lando Norris wants to be able to pit and come out ahead of Fernando Alonso, but with quite a gap to Lewis Hamilton, so that he's got loads of clean air to run into. I mean, there is a 10-second gap between Hamilton and Alonso anyway, but Norris does not want to come out behind Fernando Alonso. Needs to come out ahead of Fernando Alonso. And to be fair, there's been some slow stops at McLaren recently for Lando Norris, so doesn't want to go for it too early, I don't think. Lando Norris will be thinking back to the last few race weekends where he's had some questionable stops and going, guys, are we 100,000% sure about this? Although Verstappen is probably going to pit first and foremost. Maybe McLaren are going to do the same thing. This is going to be tight then. It's not quite the gap that they would have wanted, I don't think, at McLaren, but Verstappen calling it early. There was only a second gap between Verstappen and Norris. Verstappen in and out. Lando Norris decided not to cover him off. So even though the McLaren team came out, Lando Norris continued on. And Max Verstappen does indeed come in. McLaren are going to try and go for the overcut on Max Verstappen instead. And there we are then. Max Verstappen does indeed come out ahead of Fernando Alonso, and Red Bull timed that to perfection, because if Lando Norris would have covered off Verstappen there and come in at the same time, Lando Norris would have come out behind Fernando Alonso. So Max Verstappen did really well there, and the Red Bull team, I mean, the Red Bull team's pit stops are always pretty stunning, but that was a very, very good pit stop from the Red Bull team. And Max Verstappen being told on the radio by GP, the out lap is critical. So Max Verstappen needs to put in one of the best laps of his weekend. And Max being told to push, get those tyres up to temperature soon, and really go for it. This is going to be close. Lando Norris trying to go for that overcut. 10.5 seconds adrift of George Russell at the front of the pack. George Russell absolutely screamed towards the into the distance, didn't he, at the beginning of this race? More than half a second a lap. Lando Norris is behind George Russell. And here we are then. Max Verstappen is absolutely flying. He's the quickest of anybody through the middle sector. And you can see he's already elongated away from Fernando Alonso by 2.5 seconds. He came out just a tenth or two ahead of Fernando Alonso. Alonso even had DRS between turn 5 and turn 7 because he was that close to the back of Verstappen. Verstappen has now unleashed that Red Bull. And Isaac Hadjar is into the pits for Racing Bulls. And Isaac Hadjar, it's on that soft compound tyre. He'll have an eye on where Fernando Alonso is. Isaac Hadjar is going to come out behind Albon, but still ahead of Colapinto, maybe? No, here comes Colapinto. It's going to be very close indeed. And Isaac Hadjar up the inside. Franco Colapinto trying to go around the outside of the RB car. And Franco Colapinto very nearly got the run on Isaac Hadjar. And that just goes to show Franco Colapinto coming in, pitting early and being in that clean air has been able to do a lot better lap times. Isaac Hadjar nearly getting done by Franco Colapinto. Colapinto's having a little look at Isaac Hadjar. Anyway, Hadjar has to be defensive as they tangle for 17th place. Isaac Hadjar now 5 seconds behind Alex Albon and some clean air for him to run into. George Russell flying. Both of the McLaren cars have been told to stick with the lap times they're doing right now. So here comes Charles Leclerc, though. Leclerc into the pits, and we're starting to see the pit stops tumbling. Charles Leclerc in for the Ferrari team. Let's see where Leclerc comes out. Max Verstappen makes his way past Fernando Alonso as well. Ollie Behrman's going to get ahead. Charles Leclerc trying to come out between Hulkenberg and Lawson, possibly. Because Hulkenberg, I think, is going to be ahead of Charles Leclerc here. And is ahead of Charles Leclerc here. That is not a good place for Ferrari to come out. I think they were hoping to come out ahead of Hulkenberg. They've come out just behind Hulkenberg. Leclerc needs to get in front of Hulkenberg here, down towards turn 7 if he can. Otherwise, he is going to be held up by that Stakes Sauber car for a good few laps. Charles Leclerc does go to the inside, and Charles Leclerc does make that move happen. Ooh, if you're a Ferrari fan, you can breathe a sigh of relief as Charles Leclerc does get that move done and gets up ahead of Nico Hulkenberg and where they needed him to be after that pit stop. Max Verstappen on the radio. Free to push now. And Max Verstappen saying everything is working against me this race. So Verstappen still not very happy inside of that Red Bull car at all, but being given the go-ahead to push. So Verstappen is now going to start going for it. Here we go then. Let's see what Max has got in terms of race pace. Verstappen 6th fastest at the moment. 4.5 seconds adrift of Lewis Hamilton. And the gap between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, 20.377 seconds. So Lando Norris still would come out behind Max Verstappen. Lando Norris a 136.6 last time around. Verstappen, fastest man out on track, 136.3. So the overcut is not going to happen for McLaren. Lando not having enough pace to deal with what Max Verstappen has got on those fresh hard compound tyres. The other thing that is going to play into account, though, obviously, is that Lando Norris is going to have fresher tyres than Max Verstappen when he does come out of the pits eventually. But it's what kind of lap times Max Verstappen can put in now and try and elongate that gap to Lando Norris and make it too much for the McLaren to deal with later on in the Grand Prix. Oscar Piastri is also closing in a touch. He's now just 4 seconds adrift of his teammate. It was 5 seconds a few laps ago. But Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri being given the go-ahead to push as well, with Verstappen now on fresh tyres. George Russell looking still incredibly comfortable at the front of this race. And George Russell saying that this is the pace that he's got. George Russell did, to be fair, take the absolute life out of those tyres fairly on in this Grand Prix. Mercedes sort of giving him the push to try and go a bit quicker. But I think Lando Norris does have the better race pace. Like, Lando Norris and the McLaren team are the faster race car here this weekend. But Norris was held up by Max Verstappen during that first stint, and that's what allowed George Russell to escape away from him. So This is the realistic pace of the contenders. I think George Russell's car is slower than Norris's, but he's still got a 9-second lead. So I don't think it's going to play into George Russell being under pressure from Lando Norris anytime soon, particularly because Lando Norris still needs to pit, and Lando Norris will still come out behind Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen has a little bit of an issue of his own coming up, though. He is now 8 seconds ahead of Fernando Alonso. Remember, he came out just in front of Fernando Alonso. Max Verstappen now 8 seconds ahead of the Spaniard, but now less than 2 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton ahead. And Oscar Piastri saying that he doesn't want to lose track position because the deg feels pretty low. So Piastri actually slowing down a touch, and Lando Norris pushing. Lewis Hamilton is going to box. That's going to play into Max Verstappen's hands. And Max Verstappen, who said on the radio that everything was playing against him, has just had his first piece of really good luck. Lewis Hamilton has come into the pits just ahead of him and has now given him another 6 seconds of track to run into before he's going to reach his next Italian barrier, this time in the form of Kimi Antonelli. Oh, and it's a little bit of a slow stop for Lewis Hamilton. That front right tyre didn't go on as smoothly as you'd have liked it to. And Lewis Hamilton, I think, is also going to have to do what Charles Leclerc did and overtake Nico Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg does indeed come out, and he is ahead of Lawson, though. That's still one thing, but that 1.5 seconds that they lost on that slow front right does mean that Hamilton has now just got an extra barrier to deal with. Russell, Norris, Piastri still our front three, but Verstappen closing in on them. 136.3 once again from Verstappen, 136.9 from Norris, 137s from Russell and Piastri. So Lando Norris pushing, but Verstappen's pace still the best of anybody out on track at the moment. Charles Leclerc is in 7th place, got a lovely little bit of road to run into behind Alonso. Hülkenberg is now going to have to deal with Lewis Hamilton in his mirrors. And here comes our race leader then. George Russell into the pits for Mercedes. It's a good stop from the Mercedes team as well. 2.5 seconds. And George Russell has released Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri into the lead. But he's going to pit now. And Max Verstappen actually moves ahead of Kimi Antonelli as Antonelli comes into the pits too. What is the gap between Russell and Verstappen then? Remember, Russell had nearly a 10-second lead and is now only 3.4 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. That just goes to show the pace that Max Verstappen has been able to show on those fresh, hard compound tyres. So Verstappen looking very swift on the hard compound tyre. And Lando... Ooh. And Lando Norris being asked on the radio if he will let Oscar Piastri pit before him. And Lando Norris says, I will not. So Lando Norris is probably going to pit now so that Oscar Piastri cannot. Because Oscar Piastri is trying to defend his position from Charles Leclerc as well. Charles Leclerc has been doing very well. Lando Norris will have, what, a 7-lap advantage on Max Verstappen's tyres if he does come in this time around. He does indeed. So Lando Norris still one eye on the championship, as much as he'd like to get ahead of Max Verstappen in this race. He knows the real battle is, of course, with his teammate Oscar Piastri, who now takes provisional lead of this Grand Prix. 26 laps done on those medium compound tyres is pretty much exactly what we expected. They decide against changing that front wing on the McLaren car as well. There goes George Russell and Max Verstappen. So Lando Norris still behind that front two, as we expect him to be, and is now 4.7 seconds adrift, so has lost nearly 3, almost 4 seconds actually to Max Verstappen in that part of the race, but now has the fresher hard compound tyres. So will he be able to gain that time back on the Dutchman, we'll have to wait and see. Oscar Piastri is only going to pit now. So Piastri pitting the latest of this front four. Oh my goodness. And Isaac Hadjar has an engine issue. Oh my goodness, that is heartbreaking. Isaac Hadjar being told over the radio that they're going to have to turn the engine down because they have an engine issue. It's going to cost him 3 or 4 tenths a lap at this point in the race. So that is going to open up the door for Nico Hülkenberg to maybe slip into the point scoring places, although Hülkenberg actually has now fallen behind Colapinto and Tsunoda. So it's going to have to do some overtaking, is Hülkenberg now, having pitted a lot later than Colapinto and Tsunoda. Everybody who's pitted early for track position is sort of hoping it's going to... Oh, and it's slow for Oscar Piastri. Really, really slow for Oscar Piastri. Oh my God. 5.2 second stop for Oscar. And Oscar Piastri loses so much time there. And that's going to pretty much guarantee him slotting in behind his teammate this weekend. At least he was still ahead of Charles Leclerc. Leclerc comes out in 5th. Kimi Antonelli has just put in the fastest lap of the race of anybody in 6th spot. And Hamilton remains in 7th. So the top 7 have all now pitted. Fernando Alonso finally comes in for his fresh set of tyres. And Lawson is now running in 8th place, having yet pitted. So Lawson, Stroll, Ocon and Sainz have yet to have stopped. Ollie Behrman is now running best of the rest because he is the front runner of the guys who have pitted. Isaac Hadjar then in there as well. So Behrman has absolutely nailed this. Hadjar then has dropped to 14th place, still ahead of Fernando Alonso, but we've been told he has got an engine issue, and Hadjar is going to be moving very slowly indeed for this second half of the Grand Prix. Let's have a little look. I mean, all the tyres were awkward. It was the the rear left tyre in particular for Oscar Piastri, but the front right was slow as well. The pit stops from McLaren recently have not been the best. Oh my goodness, and what an overtake from Ollie Behrman on Alex Albon. That's a shame we didn't see that live. That's a flipping incredible overtake from Ollie Behrman coming from deep. Wow. Charles Leclerc now under pressure from Kimi Antonelli once again. And we're back where we were really with that top 7. It's still Russell, Verstappen, Norris, our top 3. Piastri in 4th, Leclerc 5th, Antonelli 6th and Hamilton 7th. So nothing changed in the pit stops. But we have got some slightly different tyre degradations on the cars in and around. So Norris has a 7-lap tyre advantage on Max Verstappen. Piastri an extra lap on his teammate, which isn't really going to play for much considering he had a super slow stop. So Piastri, unfortunately, the big loser in the pit stops there, because that really, really slow stop is costing him dearly. Oh, and my goodness me, Kimi Antonelli, feeling very racy indeed, is getting to within DRS range of Charles Leclerc. Kimi Antonelli, slightly fresher tyres than Charles Leclerc, but wanting to go for the move sooner rather than later. And Fernando Alonso telling his race engineer that if he speaks to me every lap, I will disconnect the radio. Okay. So Fernando Alonso being fairly blunt right there and just letting his team know he doesn't need to be told much more. I think he'll be frustrated in the fact that Ollie Behrman has been able to get the jump on them, right? Ollie Behrman pitting just that little bit earlier and also making a really nice move on Alex Albon. So Ollie Behrman, I think, deserves to be in that best of the rest spot right now. He is doing a very solid job. everyone ahead of him. Lawson, Stroll, Ocon, Sainz yet to have pitted. Albon just behind him yet to have pitted as well. So maybe those guys just holding out for a safety car or something similar. Lawson, 10.5 seconds adrift of Hamilton, and then sort of a couple of seconds between each of those places. Stroll, Ocon, Sainz. Behrman, though, catching up to the back of Carlos Sainz, and might have to go for another big move on a Williams car. Does Ollie Behrman. Then Esteban Ocon, I'd imagine, will move out of the way of his teammate fairly easily. And then by the time he gets to sort of Lance Stroll, Lawson, he'll probably be hoping that they'll have pitted and just moving out of the way of him. Alonso has the best radio catalogue. Yeah, I think so. I think it's just because he's a charismatic person, right? I don't think it's because, you know, he gets himself in these weird situations more than anybody else, but I think he just has a lot of personality, Fernando Alonso. He's charismatic. He gives what he wants, right? He says what he wants, sorry, more than anything else. As we hit the halfway point of this Grand Prix, we're on lap 31, 62 laps to be completed. George Russell still leading. It's a 3.5 second gap between Russell and Verstappen. Lando Norris 4.5 seconds behind that. Piastri nearly 10 seconds adrift of his teammate. Charles Leclerc then 5.5 seconds adrift. Kimi Antonelli, the only driver really looking like he's going to make any kind of moves happen. It's very difficult to overtake here in Singapore. You do just kind of have to go for it when it happens. And Esteban Ocon pits. Carlos Sainz and Ollie Behrman move ahead of him. So does Alex Albon now. So Esteban Ocon is going to fall a pretty long way, actually. I think Ocon is going to come out right at the back of the pack. Pierre Gasly just coming around the final corner and down towards turn 1. I mean, Ocon wasn't running anywhere near the points anyway. But drops all the way to 20th place with that pit stop. And Ollie Behrman now is right under the rear wing of Carlos Sainz. So we might get to see an overtake there. Kimi Antonelli still trying everything that he possibly can to get in front of Charles Leclerc, but Charles Leclerc with more battery remaining than Kimi Antonelli. Need to be within sort of half a second of the car in front, really, and also go for a lunge where they're not expecting. So Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, and Oscar Piastri all quicker than George Russell, who is leading this race, but not by a considerable margin. Oscar Piastri about half a second quicker than Russell at this point. But that would still mean 20 laps before he could close into the back of him. No, it wouldn't. He's 17 seconds adrift. He needs a lot more to close into the back of him. So not a lot really happening at the front of the pack. Safety car needed to really reshuffle those cars closer together. Charles Leclerc has been able to hold on to 5th place from Kimi Antonelli, and Antonelli has now dropped outside of DRS range. Possibly a little mistake from Kimi Antonelli, or just getting a little too close for comfort with Charles Leclerc. Ollie Behrman, though, looking at a move on Carlos Sainz to get back in to the point scoring places. We saw these two side by side in Monza. Didn't end well for either of them, really. Let's hope that we don't see the same kind of bouncing around between these two. Any DNFs? Not to this point, actually, no. All 20 drivers are still running around. Albon and Gasly did start from the pit lane. And there's been a couple of bumps and bruises with the wall. Some damage to Lando Norris's front wing, which he's still running with. Some damage to Gabriel Bortoletto's front wing, but the Stake Sauber team deciding to swap that during the pit stops. And Ollie Behrman, DRS open underneath the rear wing of Carlos Sainz. Sainz on very, very old medium tyres. 31 laps have been completed by Carlos Sainz on those tyres. And Behrman unable to make a move at the moment because Carlos Sainz has also got DRS to Lance Stroll ahead. So Lance Stroll is being the real cork in Ollie Behrman's bottle here. And Liam Lawson still running best of the rest. If Antonelli came 5th, would McLaren still win the Constructors? Yes, basically, yeah. Should we have a little look at the championship? We can have a little look at the championship if you fancy it. Might as well, as we get towards the halfway point, and the top 7 have all done their pit stops as well. So the championship at the moment would see Piastri gain 12 points, Lando Norris gain 15. So that would drop to a 22-point gap at the top of the drivers' standings. But McLaren gaining 27 points. Mercedes would still outscore them, 33 points, but they would have over 303 points. So they need a 303-point gap at the top of the standings, and comfortably over 303 points right now. Basically, the only way that McLaren don't win the Constructors' Championship this weekend is if Mercedes or Ferrari get a 1-2 and McLaren DNF both cars. So it's not looking likely. Looking very likely indeed that McLaren are going to win that Constructors' standings. Max Verstappen would gain 18 points. So it would be 66 points adrift, I think, of 63 points adrift of Oscar Piastri at the top of the standings. So again, 10 points per race weekend-ish away from Oscar Piastri. George Russell would move on to 237, but there'd be no real movers anywhere in the championships. Liam Lawson at the moment is looking like he's going to move up a couple of places, but he's not going to finish 8th. In fact, Ollie Behrman, if he does get those 4 points, Behrman, he would go to equal with Yuki Tsunoda. So Behrman is looking like he will jump Bortoletto in the championship standings, but that's the only real move that is likely to happen inside of the drivers' standings after this race. Would also see Haas move closer to Kick Sauber, but none of the Constructors' Championship places looking like they're going to move or shake in any way after this one. Unfortunately, as much as I love Singapore, it's looking like it's going to just end up being a little bit of a drab affair where pit stops didn't play into people's favors and the gaps between the cars didn't play in the way that people were expecting, and nobody really gained anything. Lando Norris gaining on lap 1. It's been the only real big move. Could say the same from Charles Leclerc, I guess, moving from 7th to 5th. Piastri's moved down a place. Antonelli's moved down a couple of places. Hamilton moved down a position as well. Carlos Sainz gaining on Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll still on a set of soft compound tyres, I've just realised. 34 laps completed on those soft compound tyres, Lance Stroll. I mean, they have got to be basically just shredding themselves at this point. Goodness gracious me. Lawson is 5 seconds ahead of Lance Stroll, but Carlos Sainz now DRS. Behrman DRS to Sainz behind as well. And all this is doing is costing Ollie Behrman lap time. Although I feel like Ollie Behrman is going to have more than enough with Isaac Hadjar having his engine problems and Fernando Alonso down in 14th place at the moment. 34 on softs is too illegal. I mean, I think it's just going to show that the tyre degradation here this weekend is nowhere near what we expected it to be. The track has been resurfaced in areas. Well, it is a street circuit, so the streets have been resurfaced over the year, which does happen, and therefore we are seeing the tyres just lasting a pretty long time. They are starting to fall off for Carlos Sainz, for Lance Stroll, and for Carlos Sainz as well. They've both done 34 laps on their tyres. So has Alex Albon. Alex Albon's yet to have pitted as well, but Does feel like they're doing this to really no avail, because Lawson's pace is not amazing, a 138.4. You look at the fact that Hadjar's doing 137s, Alonso's doing 137s, Colapinto's doing 137s. Like, Lawson's not really doing anything spectacular. Lance Stroll the same. A 139 dead from Lance Stroll is a pretty dead lap time, to be honest with you. But Russell, Verstappen, Norris, all kind of lapping around the same time at this point. Norris getting to 2.2 seconds from Max Verstappen. Oh, and that was a very swift lap time from Lando Norris. Was there a mistake there from Max Verstappen? And he's locked up as Max Verstappen. Ooh, a big lock up from Max Verstappen. And that's actually just given Russell a bit of breathing space and given Lando Norris a little bit of something to chase here, because it's now only 2 seconds, that gap between Verstappen and Norris. And as you can see, Verstappen lost 2 seconds last lap. Fernando Alonso now under pressure from Isaac Hadjar. Hadjar, with that engine problem, is doing his absolute best to try and defend from the Spaniard, but isn't going to be able to do it because the engine is... Oh, Isaac Hadjar, actually. That is a saucy little defensive maneuver through 17 and 18. Gives him a little bit of a brake test as well, by the looks of things, through turn 18 and 19. Just a touch. And here comes Fernando Alonso to try and move around the outside of turn 1. And Isaac Hadjar is making that RB car incredibly wide through those turns, but is not going to have anything because Fernando Alonso gets a really good run out of turn 3. And Alonso finally gets that move done. Isaac Hadjar just cannot live with the pace of the other cars around him when he just hasn't got the engine turned up to its full capacity, you know. Can't really blame Isaac Hadjar for this one. He is running an engine that has an issue. And Alonso on the radio. And Alonso, hero of the race, he says he wants a trophy for that. Well, assuming he means himself over Isaac Hadjar. Hadjar did a heroic job at trying to defend from Fernando Alonso, but got a little bit out of shape through turn 1, turn 2, and Alonso was able to just get the power down and get ahead of Isaac Hadjar. I mean, Alonso did lose quite a bit of time there, though. 5.5 seconds adrift of Albon now, so Alonso's got some space to run into. Lance Stroll is still there, by the way. So slow, and is just holding up Sainz and Behrman as well. Behrman in particular, having already pitted, is just going to be so frustrated behind this point because Carlos Sainz has got DRS and it's just slowing down Sainz and Behrman behind. Albon is even starting to catch up to Ollie Behrman, which Ollie Behrman was able to make the move on Albon and get that overtake done. And here we go then. Max Verstappen, just watching him come down the pit straight with Lando Norris now within 2 seconds of Verstappen. That mistake could be costly for Verstappen here. As long as he's tidy, Verstappen's all good. They both put in 136 deads, 136.0s. George Russell a 136.1. Piastri a 135.5. So Piastri still very racy indeed. It's just a shame that he is 8 seconds adrift of Lando Norris still. Charles Leclerc then 12 seconds adrift in 5th place. Kimi Antonelli has given up any chance of getting in front of Charles Leclerc and is sitting in 6th. He's now a second and a half adrift of the Italian team. And Lewis Hamilton in 7th spot. Just feels like that top 7. Maybe there's a little battle between Norris and Verstappen to come, but generally speaking, that's pretty locked in. And Lance Stroll is finally pitting. Carlos Sainz and Ollie Behrman breathe a sigh of relief. And Sainz is finally going to be able to put his pedal down. Ollie Behrman is going to be looking at Carlos Sainz now, though, and is going to be looking for an overtaking maneuver. But Lance Stroll finally pits, and this is what I meant. Lance Stroll was just so slow. I don't know what they were hoping for. I guess a safety car, but look at where he's going to come out. He is going to be 8 seconds adrift of 19th place. He is so far back. It's Lance Stroll at this point because those lap times were so slow. Max Verstappen on the radio. The rear is like a handbrake. Please help. And they're just adjusting the brake balance inside of that Red Bull car. Giampiero Lambiase doing his best to help Max Verstappen as much as he can from the technical area. And Max Verstappen, 1.4 seconds the gap. So, yeah, that mistake is... I think he's just given Lando Norris a little bit of hope as well. Lando Norris is predicting that he's got an opportunity here to go for it. And, the Sky team predicting that he will be within striking distance of Max Verstappen before the end of this race. Lando Norris on the radio. Struggling in the dirty air already. Verstappen is struggling in clean air, so let's put some pressure on him. And that's why Lando Norris has been pushing, and I think that's why Piastri has also decided to start closing that gap down, because if Lando Norris does move ahead of Verstappen, then the gap or the points gained from Lando Norris, another 3 points in his pocket. Piastri would be needing to retaliate to that. Lap 42 of 62 to come. Oh no, sorry, lap 41 of 62. I was reading the wrong thing. Lando Norris, 1.5 seconds adrift, but as he just said, really struggling in the dirty air. Ollie Behrman hasn't been able to get past Carlos Sainz, which I was expecting, but Behrman now following Sainz through turn 11 and 12. We'll see if that battle eventually comes to a head. I mean, Carlos Sainz will have to pit at some point. So Ollie Behrman still running best of the rest. Lawson and Sainz ahead of him still need to stop, and Alex Albon needs to stop as well. Max Verstappen has just had a lap time deleted for going off of the track. A 136 dead from Max Verstappen was deleted, so 2 track limits violations for Max now. Verstappen was actually quicker on lap 40 of this race. Sainz and Behrman still battling. Behrman having a little look at Carlos Sainz down towards turn 1. Doesn't go for the move. I think Behrman also just being a bit cautious. He knows that he's had side-by-side battles with Carlos Sainz that haven't gone very well. They were side-by-side in Monza, Sainz and Behrman. And Behrman also needs to be careful about those penalty points that he's picked up. Truly is the Kevin Magnussen regen inside of that Haas team, isn't he? He's picked up a lot of penalty points this year. Has Ollie Behrman. If he does manage to get a race ban, not sure who Haas would go for in that second seat alongside Ocon if Ollie Behrman were forced to miss a race. I'm sure there'd be a lot of drivers who would be willing to go into that Haas seat for a Grand Prix. Lando Norris now 2.5 seconds adrift. I don't think it's so much of a Lando mistake as much as the tyres just don't work in the dirty air. Like Lando Norris, as soon as he was within a couple of seconds of Max Verstappen, the first thing he said was the tyres just don't work. Oh, there you go. And Lando rescuing the car through turn 17. He just got very close to the wall, did Lando Norris as well. Zhou Guanyu is Haas reserve, if I'm not wrong. I think you might be right. Yeah, could see it being Zhou Guanyu. Grosjean. Don't think so. Yeah, he got his run out in a Haas car, did Romain Grosjean. I'm not sure they'd actually put him back in for a Grand Prix. Alonso is now all over the rear wing of Alex Albon, and Williams are really causing some headaches for the midfield teams now. Sainz and Albon have just continued on, and Fernando Alonso trying to get past Alex Albon as soon as he possibly can, and Albon breaks very late indeed, and Alonso takes the advantage of that. Alonso skips past and gets past Alex Albon. A real side-by-side battle there between the two. Alex Albon trying his best, but Alonso on the fresher tyres. Albon's tyres have now done 41 laps since the start of the Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso's only 15. And Carlos Sainz is also there as well. Hadjar is moving fairly slowly still, but Tsunoda going well. Tsunoda's going to be looking at the back of Hadjar because that's the final point scoring place. He's 6 seconds adrift there of Isaac Hadjar. Didn't see that until now. Max Verstappen on the radio. Undrivable, he calls his Red Bull car. Not very happy at all, as we now watch a little battle between Bortoleto, Gasly and Ocon. There's three drivers in 17th, 18th and 19th place having a battle with one another. I mean, the only thing that could come good from that kind of battle is if they do smash into one another and we maybe get a little bit of safety car or even a red flag. Could Tsunoda and Colapinto get very, very close to one another. And Alex Albon finally pits for the Williams team. Again, is going to fall all the way to the back of the pack. Is it possible for Norris to overtake Verstappen? It's not looking likely, is it? Not looking very likely indeed. That's where it was. There was a big lockup from Franco Colapinto, which allowed Yuki Tsunoda pass. Nico Hülkenberg also tried to get past, but then got closed in by Franco Colapinto and nearly lost the front wing of his Sauber to the rear right tyre of Franco Colapinto's car. It's a couple of Sauber front wings that are going to need some TLC after this Grand Prix. Oh, Piastri on the radio. Oscar Piastri very dejected on the radio, being asked if there was a safety car now, would you like to pit for the soft compound tyre? And actually just not really that bothered is Oscar Piastri, knowing that he's 6 seconds adrift of the front three anyway, so doesn't really feel like he needs to do much. I suppose he's got the gap to Leclerc behind. He's got, if it was a safety car, he's got a safety car pit stop to Charles Leclerc behind, but that's about it. Lando Norris is chucking the McLaren car around, still trying to close that gap to Verstappen ahead, but the dirty air now coming into effect as George Russell is starting to make his way through the back markers. We're seeing Lance Stroll and Esteban Ocon now between Russell and Verstappen. This is the other thing that might play into Lando Norris's favour, is if he's able to get... Oh! And that's a Gabriel Bortoleto. No, it's a Nico Hülkenberg who has made a mistake and gone very, very deep into turn 7, spun his Stake Sauber car around, does continue on, but, well, at least now pointing his car in the right direction, Nico Hülkenberg. And just... let's have a little look then. Following down towards turn 7. Oh my goodness me. Just completely locks up. And went into anti-stall as well. Could have ended very badly indeed. Luckily, there's quite a bit of escape road down there at turn 7 and managed to maneuver his way around the Alpine. So, And George Russell not very happy at all with the cars in front of him. Blue flags, get out of the way, as George Russell's call on the radio, as Max Verstappen and Lando Norris try and get past Lance Stroll, and just about do. But Lando Norris now just 1.2 seconds behind Verstappen, so you have to, it's part of the tactics of Formula One this weekend now, is trying to get past these back markers. Everybody has been so slow and went so long on those tires. Like, you come up to lap these back markers, you're in the dirty air of them. George Russell is still stuck behind Gabriel Bortoleto. Bortoleto just not getting out of the way until the last possible moment. So it's taken George Russell a good little while to get through Ocon, Gasly, Bortoleto. And then Lando Norris and Verstappen. Lando Norris is now less than a second behind Verstappen as well. So is Lando Norris going to be able to use this traffic to his advantage and actually use the back markers to be able to get in front of Max Verstappen? Have to wait and see. Lando Norris closing in, DRS range of them. You can see, though, Piastri is, not having to get through these back markers yet, and is running ahead of Alex Albon. And you can just see, like, the lap times are so much better from Oscar Piastri and so much more consistent from Oscar Piastri as well. Russell, Verstappen, Norris now really struggling with trying to get through these cars in front of them. And Max Verstappen on the radio is really struggling with the balance of that Red Bull car and is not happy with how it is running at all. There's still 16 laps left to go, and Lando Norris is as close as he has been all Grand Prix. Kimi Antonelli still holds the fastest lap of the race so far, by the way. Lewis Hamilton running in 7th place behind him. Liam Lawson is still going. Lewis Hamilton is pitting. Hamilton into the pits. Decided get himself some softer tyres for the end of this race then. Lewis Hamilton, a 2.3 second stop. He's going to come out still ahead of Liam Lawson because Lawson is so much slower than the rest of the pack. Oh, Hamilton, though, is actually going to come out behind Nico Hülkenberg in very different circumstances to when he came out behind Nico Hülkenberg earlier on in the Grand Prix. Hülkenberg, of course, in 20th place and miles off of it after his spin into turn 7. But Hamilton does now have to get past Nico Hülkenberg once again. Blue flags will give him a hand with that. Hamilton, some soft compound tyres until the end. Lawson, Sainz, still yet to have pitted. And I think that is all. Yeah, so just Lawson and Sainz yet to have stopped here in Singapore. Behrman has lost out to Fernando Alonso. So Alonso has actually moved up in front of Ollie Behrman whilst they have been battling, and Behrman's tyres starting to struggle as he had to sit behind Lance Stroll and Carlos Sainz for so long. So Fernando Alonso now best of the rest, then Ollie Behrman, and then Isaac Hadjar is running in the final point scoring place effectively. As Alonso now also gets past Carlos Sainz, so Alonso wanting to get himself past these slow-moving cars that have yet to have pitted. Lawson is next up, and then Alonso will be in 8th place, where he'll likely finish the Grand Prix. And Verstappen and Norris are still having to deal with some back markers. George Russell has been able to get through them all. George Russell's next back marker is Yuki Tsunoda, who's at least a few seconds, ahead. But Verstappen and Norris are still trying to get past Bortoleto and Colapinto. And Lando Norris is within half a second of Verstappen because he is able to slide his way through these back markers just as they get out of the way of Max Verstappen. They're also then getting out of the way of Lando Norris. Of course, Max Verstappen does get DRS to the back marker in front of him. Piastri says 8 cars within 10 seconds. Massive following. It's like And Oscar Piastri is being told on the radio there's a lot of cars ahead of him and a lot of traffic to contend with, that Verstappen and Norris are still trying to deal with. Colapinto, the last one, before Verstappen is then actually back behind George Russell. Max Verstappen goes for a very late move ahead of Colapinto through turn 5. I think just wanting to escape away from Lando Norris a touch. Lando Norris does indeed get past Colapinto as well, and the gap between them is just under a second. So Lando Norris is still going to have DRS here to Max Verstappen ahead. Needs something to play in his favour. I mean, those back markers played into Lando Norris's favour. Max Verstappen's mistake is played into Lando Norris's favour. He now just needs one more thing to really play into his favour, because it's going to be tough. And Piastri is not happy at all. Piastri really is venting his opinions today, isn't he? Normally is so cool, calm and collected is Oscar Piastri. Today absolutely has had enough of it. Like, he cannot be bothered whatsoever, can Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris still ahead of him on track, still behind him in the championship by 22 points as it stands. Lewis Hamilton's just put the fastest lap of anybody in. Of course, no fastest lap point during this 2025 season, so it doesn't really pay for anything, but Hamilton showing that he has got pace inside of that Ferrari car when he's got a completely empty track in front of him. Kimi Antonelli 15 seconds up the road and no back markers between the two of them, so the next car up on the racetrack. Verstappen and Norris, though. Norris still closing into the back of Verstappen. It had elongated to a second or so, but now Lando Norris realizing that this might be his one and only real opportunity to go for it. Verstappen still struggling inside of that Red Bull car with the balance of it. Lost out a lot during the moving of the back markers. No back markers to come for a little while for Verstappen and Norris, though, as George Russell still hasn't quite caught up to the back of the Tsunoda, Hadjar, Behrman pack. Tsunoda looking really good for that final point scoring place, though, has caught up to the back of Isaac Hadjar. Once Carlos Sainz moves out of the way, Ollie Behrman is going to be under quite a bit of pressure, and Isaac Hadjar also is going to be under pressure too. Although George Russell is catching up to the back of them, so they will also have to move out of the way of George Russell at some point as well, you would imagine. But Carlos Sainz is causing a real headache. Ollie Behrman is going to be so annoyed that Lance Stroll, Carlos Sainz were like there in front of him and he couldn't get past, because they cost him so much time in that middle part of the race. And Fernando Alonso on the medium tyres has been able to kind of show Ollie Behrman what he should have tried to do, and has been able to scythe his way through those couple of back markers. Well, no, they're not back markers, they're racing him through those guys that haven't pitted yet. Soon to be back markers, as Carlos Sainz is going to eventually have to pit and eventually fall all the way to the back of the pack. But Sainz 49 laps on those medium tyres. And again, I just don't know what Williams are hoping for here. Like a red flag? Like, I don't know. They still need to pit at some point. Just going to try and do the whole race. Make a point of it. I did the whole race on these medium tyres. Tyre degradation needs to be higher. Lando Norris closing into the back of Verstappen. Verstappen, a little wiggle of that Red Bull car. Lando Norris is as close as he can be, but runs out of straight. Has DRS down through turn 14, 15. Verstappen is doing a very solid job at making sure that Red Bull car is positioned exactly where it should be. And praise to God, Carlos Sainz has pitted. Ollie Behrman has been released. He has finally been given the piece of track that he deserves. Behrman now moves up into 9th, Hadjar up into 10th, and we can see the actual order of the grid as Carlos Sainz comes in, pits for the soft compound tyre. Carlos Sainz, snazzy little choice from him, and it's going to come out between Lance Stroll and Esteban Ocon. Here's Carlos Sainz. So yeah, still running behind Lance Stroll even after that pit stop. Bortoleto and Colapinto ahead. Yuki Tsunoda the closest to a point scoring place, and Tsunoda now battling with Hadjar. Both of them having to move out of the way of George Russell. Russell has now moved ahead of the two Red Bull powered cars, but we are seeing a straight fight between Tsunoda and Hadjar for the final point scoring place. Hadjar is now 5 seconds adrift of Behrman. He was right underneath Ollie Behrman at one point, but Behrman, being released by Carlos Sainz, has actually been able to put his pace to good use. And Behrman finally getting a couple of moves, or getting the opportunity to put a couple of corners together without having to deal with the dirty air in front of him. George Russell has got in front of Hadjar and Tsunoda. So let's see what Hadjar can do here. Can he hold on to that final point scoring place even with an engine problem? Or is Yuki Tsunoda going to nab a point from the man who seems most likely to replace him for next year? Lando Norris, 10 laps left to go, is still half a second off the back of Verstappen, and is still not able to really put together any kind of meaningful overtake attempt. Kimi Antonelli also decided he's had enough of being behind Charles Leclerc. We've seen this a couple of times. Always, Lando Norris does get side by side with Verstappen for the first time through turn 7. And Lando Norris not able to get the move done, though. They don't want to lose too much time here. Oscar Piastri is 5 seconds adrift. They don't want to invite him into this battle either. Lewis Hamilton absolutely flying. It's now under 8 seconds behind Kimi Antonelli. Maybe Ferrari cooking something a little bit special here. If Charles Leclerc can hold up Kimi Antonelli, then maybe Lewis Hamilton can sneak a 6th place finish. It's all coming to fruition right at the end here in Singapore. It's been a very chess-style battle where the first few moves have been countered, but now the grid is opening up and everybody's final chances to make something happen come into fruition. Yuki Tsunoda's had to slow down a lot to let Verstappen by. I would imagine the Red Bull team were on the radio to ask Yuki Tsunoda to just get out of the way. Unfortunately, even though Hadjar is a Red Bull powered car, they don't quite have the same luxury there. They can't just tell Isaac Hadjar to get out of the way. And here we go. Norris overtook Oscar at the start. Yeah, it had nothing to do with the slow stop. It's just that Oscar lost out on, what, 4 or 5 seconds because of that slow stop. Nah, maybe not even that. 2 or 3 seconds because of that slow stop. And Lance Stroll not very happy at all with his tyre degradation. Bortoleto is on 40-lap-old hard compound tyres ahead, but Lance Stroll still struggling to get past him. It is pretty tricky to overtake here, even when you've got that huge tyre advantage. Only Fernando Alonso has really been able to make some moves here in Singapore. And as he said on the radio, trophy for the hero of the race. I think Fernando Alonso does deserve a trophy here for actually putting together some overtakes. Max Verstappen has been able to just about escape from Lando Norris a touch. Verstappen still within DRS range of the McLaren behind, but Lando Norris nowhere near as close as he has been over the last couple of laps, and actually nearly got outside of DRS range as they went through the DRS detection point there, Verstappen. but it's still 0.94 between the two. Piastri, though, 3.663 behind his teammate, is certainly closing in. Bit of a slower lap from Oscar Piastri last time around, but that 5-second gap now within 3.5. And Lewis Hamilton now closing in. Kimi Antonelli has been able to make a move on Charles Leclerc, by the way, which we just didn't get to see on the coverage. Apologies. Antonelli, yeah, finally breaks through. Has indeed managed to get past Charles Leclerc. And Antonelli also now getting past Esteban Ocon as well. So Antonelli, I think the Mercedes car has been way quicker than the Ferrari this weekend. Lewis Hamilton, though, gaining on the back of Charles Leclerc. I'd imagine the Ferrari team are going to ask for those two to swap and then maybe swap back around. Isaac Hadjar on the radio. And please confirm the situation on Max and Norris. And Isaac Hadjar just says yes. So maybe the sister team trying to imply not to hold Max up. But Isaac Hadjar running his own race at this point. And Isaac Hadjar trying to score a point for his own team. So I can't really understand why Isaac Hadjar would do anything in particular to help out Max Verstappen here. Of course, you know, if he does end up being his teammate next year, it'd be a different situation. But currently he's in a different team and fighting for different things. Lando Norris still within a second, and Charles Leclerc does indeed let Lewis Hamilton by. So Hamilton now up into 6th, Charles Leclerc down into 7th. And Hamilton on the soft compound tyre, 2.8 seconds the gap between Hamilton and Antonelli. And this could be a nice little fight. Antonelli on the hard compound tyre, 30 laps completed on those. But I think in the quicker car versus Hamilton on some soft compound tyres, it's been able to get a little helping hand by Charles Leclerc, who kind of held up Antonelli for a few laps at least. And Isaac Hadjar does eventually get those blue flags and moves out of the way of both Verstappen and Norris at the same time. So Isaac Hadjar is 10th place now. And this is the thing, Yuki Tsunoda slowed down such a lot to let Verstappen and Norris by that he could have been within touching distance of Hadjar, but it's now 5 seconds adrift of Isaac Hadjar. So Hadjar looking good for that final point scoring place. And it is still Alonso, Behm and Hadjar are 3 drivers to score points. Sort of outside of the top 7 as we expected it to be, but a slightly different order. Behm has jumped ahead. Isaac Hadjar has dropped a couple of positions down. Alonso best of the rest. Lando Norris still within a second of Verstappen, but still not able to do anything about it. Just looking pretty much done and dusted. Should we look at the championship? McLaren would confirm themselves as Constructors' Championships as championship winners as it stands. Piastri and Norris would still be 22 points separated at the top of the drivers' standings. Mercedes would be the highest scoring team this weekend. They'd move 25 points ahead of Ferrari in the constructor standings, who would still be 10 points ahead of Red Bull Racing. Racing Bulls would gain a point. Aston Martin would gain 4 and Haas would gain 2 points, but it doesn't change any of the positions inside of the constructors standings. Fernando Alonso would be the big winner this weekend. He'd move up to 11th place in the driver standings, the only driver to move up in the driver standings, as he's jump up to 34 points and just 3 points behind Nico Hülkenberg in 10th. Lance Stroll, Carlos Sainz and Liam Lawson would all move down a position, allowing Fernando Alonso to make that jump up. That's where we are in terms of the standings at the moment. Still 4 laps left to go. As George Russell now partway through lap 58 of this Grand Prix, coming up towards turn 7 on your screens right now. But Russell has been dominant this weekend. The Mercedes car clearly coming out of nowhere, having the pace. Max Verstappen doing him a favour, starting on the soft compound tyres and holding up the pack just a little bit. George Russell putting that clean air to good use at the start of the Grand Prix. Elongated his lead in that first stint to 10 seconds over the rest of the pack. And now even still has a 6-second lead over Max Verstappen. Lando Norris has decided that it's now or never. Really going for it is Lando Norris. Pushing his car to the absolute limits, but still not within touching distance of Max Verstappen as they come towards the overtaking points of the track. DRS open for Lando Norris. A little bit of damage to his front wing. Still that end plate holding on for dear life as it has been for 58 laps of this Grand Prix. And Max Verstappen still has more than enough to keep Lando Norris at bay. Oscar Piastri is now 2.7 seconds behind his teammate. But again, just doesn't feel like he's going to be within any kind of striking distance before we get to the checkered flag. Kimi Antonelli under pressure from Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton not quite within DRS range yet. He's just over a second behind Kimi Antonelli. It's going to be very close though, and will probably have DRS on lap 59. Antonelli and Hamilton just coming down towards turn 1. And actually Antonelli being held up by the pack of Stroll, Colapinto, Sainz and Lawson that is there in front of him. Sorry, Albon and Lawson. But Antonelli, he's going to have that advantage taken away from him, and Hamilton has got DRS and just not able to get there yet. But 0.6 of a second between Antonelli and Hamilton. Antonelli was able to get past Leclerc, but Hamilton now looking to take 5th place. So it would still be Antonelli 6th and the two Ferraris swapping their positions around. Hamilton to within half a second of Kimi Antonelli then. The Italian driver with the Italian car behind him. And under some real pressure now. Hamilton forcing an error from Kimi Antonelli would be the best way of trying to get past him. The rookie in his first season of Formula One racing. Lewis Hamilton though. Let's have a little look as they come through turn 14. Hamilton has the DRS down towards turn 16. And not able to do anything there. DRS detection zone as they come through turn 17 and down towards 18. And Hamilton has actually fallen quite substantially away from Kimi Antonelli. What's going on with Lewis Hamilton's car here? Oh, and Hamilton went off the track at turn 16 and lost 2 seconds to Kimi Antonelli. So Hamilton with an error there. That is going to cost Lewis Hamilton a chance at a top 5 finish and is going to allow Kimi Antonelli to finish in 5th place ahead of him. Really unfortunate for Lewis Hamilton. Black and white flag for Ollie Behrman as he hits the 3 track limits infringements. You can see on your screens there. Let's have a look at this. Kimi Antonelli versus Lewis Hamilton. Did Hamilton actually go for a move or is it just a mistake? Oh no, this is a replay of Kimi Antonelli making the move down at turn 16 on lap 54, getting past Charles Leclerc. I think Hamilton maybe tried a similar kind of thing, but Hamilton making the mistake and now 3 seconds, nearly 4 seconds adrift of Kimi Antonelli. Maybe Lewis Hamilton giving that position back to Charles Leclerc, slowing down enough to do so as we have 2 laps left to go here in Singapore. Max Verstappen still defending from Lando Norris. We kind of deviated away from this pair because there wasn't really too much happening. And still not too much happening. We're still Lando Norris sort of half a second to 0.8 of a second behind Verstappen, but just impossible to overtake in these conditions, even with a 7 laps fresher hard compound tyres. And I think the faster of the two cars in the McLaren, just not able to do anything at this point. Charles Leclerc has indeed been let by, with Lewis Hamilton dropping back into 7th after that mistake. Realised he's not going to be able to get past Kimi Antonelli, so has fallen back behind Charles Leclerc. And actually, Lewis Hamilton now also falling back behind loads of back markers. What has Lewis Hamilton done to that Ferrari car? I think Lewis Hamilton might have a problem. I think Hamilton's brakes have gone, he said. So that would be why he made a mistake. The TV coverage, has to be said, has been absolutely abysmal. Like, we've not seen any of the action. Here we go. Oh, and yeah, can see the front left brake of Lewis Hamilton's car spark. So it's not a mistake from Lewis Hamilton that cost him that run at Kimi Antonelli. It's the front left brake just completely seems to give out. And Charles Leclerc then cruises around his teammate and actually makes a mistake through turn 2 because he was overtaking Lewis Hamilton. But Hamilton's brakes have given out. Where's Fernando Alonso in all of this? He's 29 seconds adrift. Hamilton's still got a lap and a sector to do. So 4 sectors to complete from Lewis Hamilton. And Fernando Alonso bearing down on him. 23 seconds the gap between the two. Keep an eye on that. 21.9. Can Alonso catch the back of Lewis Hamilton? That would be a very interesting final lap. If Alonso can catch Lewis Hamilton, it's going to be right at the line by the looks of things, because Hamilton going very, very slowly indeed, but maybe just holding on to a little bit of pace. Hamilton with a 2 minute and 8 second lap. That is slow. Very slow indeed from Lewis Hamilton. The gap between Hamilton and Alonso down to 11.9 seconds. I think Alonso's going to get him here, you know. Fernando Alonso looking for a 7th place finish. But here comes George Russell. We should probably talk about him as he wins the Grand Prix. It's a comfortable victory from George Russell. Probably the easiest win of his career so far. Max Verstappen comes home in 2nd. Lando Norris 3rd. Oscar Piastri 4th. But Lando just... It's going to be an interesting little debate between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri after this one. Kimi Antonelli then 24.6 seconds adrift. Let's keep an eye on Fernando Alonso, though. Fernando Alonso now 5.2 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton coming around turn 10. Alonso closing the gap, 3.7 seconds, the gap between Hamilton and Alonso. Hamilton, 3.1 seconds, the gap. Hamilton only coming around turn 13. Alonso's going to do this, you know. Hamilton's brake issue is going to cost him, and Alonso is going to get up ahead of Hamilton. Can Hamilton defend into turn 16? Alonso's going to have it. Alonso 2 seconds adrift as they come round turn 14 together. Alonso, 1.4 seconds. Now the gap between the two. Alonso's just going to have to go for it. It's going to be all the way to the line, I think, because Hamilton going through turn 16 and 17 now. Alonso within a second of Lewis Hamilton, but Hamilton is going to have a run at it. It's going to be so close between Hamilton and Alonso. 0.4 seconds, and he just gets there. Oh, my goodness. Lewis Hamilton fans, breathe in, breathe out. Goodness me. Alonso, a desperate fight to the finish for Lewis Hamilton as he lost like nearly 30 seconds on lap 61 of this race. Hamilton, 7th place finish. Alonso finishes 8th in the end. And Ollie Behrman, 9th place finish for the Haas car. Very solid indeed. Kimi Antonelli, very impressed with him moving up ahead of Charles Leclerc. Managed his tyres very well indeed, considering, and getting the better of the much more experienced Ferrari driver. I think the Ferrari car, though, was unfortunately outdone. Lewis Hamilton, a little bit unlucky with that brake failure right at the end there. But that is that then for the Singapore Grand Prix for the 2025 season. Let's take a final little look at the championship board as it is now fully confirmed. So Fernando Alonso does indeed move up. Oh. Why is... What's gone on with Isaac Hadjar? Isaac Hadjar lost out a position to Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz nabs the final point. I didn't even see it. Oh, Isaac. Oh, Isaac. Isaac Hadjar does not get that final point. Carlos Sainz gets the point. Fernando Alonso, still the big mover, moves up 3 places, up into 11th place in the driver's standings. Stroll and Lawson then move down to make way. Carlos Sainz stays where he is with that additional point going into his favour. Antonelli plus 10 points gets into 88. Hamilton plus 6, 127. Charles Leclerc plus 8 onto 173. George Russell, those 25 points put him on 237 and out of sight of the 2 Ferraris behind. Max Verstappen up to 273. So he's now 63 points adrift of Oscar Piastri, but once again finishes ahead of the 2 McLarens. Lando Norris closes into 22 points from his championship rival, but Piastri is still top of the tree on 336 points. McLaren do claim the Constructors' Championship. Thank you very much. We'll take it. Well done, lads. One more Constructors' Championship added to the books. That is 2 seasons in a row the McLaren have won the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes still the closest competitor. They're 25 points, though, ahead of Ferrari in 3rd spot. And Max Verstappen doing his best, but all by himself. 290 points for the season. Not really being helped out too much by his teammate. Williams stay where they were. Racing Bull stay where Aston Martin stay where they were. Kick Sauber also the same. 2 points for Haas doesn't move them anywhere either. And Alpine still at the bottom of the pile in the Constructors. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Massively appreciate it. I will now be live in 5 minutes time over for the members. Just going to get a couple of things set up. If you are a member, make sure you head over to that live stream and we will be discussing the Singapore Grand Prix in a little bit more detail. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. If you're not sure what to do now, head over to the Crash Happy YouTube channel and go and watch like the Gartic phone video between me, Mr. V, Mr. Pulse, Dan No Skill and Formula Duck. It was incredible. It's hilarious. Definitely worth a watch. Can Max Verstappen win the World Drivers' Championship? We'll have to wait and see. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.